CrowdStrike! And we're back. May the force be with you.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Welcome to FazRadio tonight. We are talking about CrowdStrike. And we actually snagged somebody who knows something about CrowdStrike. I'll let this person introduce themselves. But of course, we have Faz. I'm Faz. We have Titan and Zorro here as well. And a special guest that can tell us all about all sorts of bad things that happened that people bitched and moaned a whole lot about.
You know, I'm not going to bitch and moan forever, but I'm going to try and keep it pretty focused. So Dixie Flatline, I actually started working for CrowdStrike after being an extremely happy customer, right? I would still say, despite what happened, if I was building up my own environment, that's still probably the EDR I would use. I would definitely go with the one version back product updates rather than always getting the latest and greatest. You know, part of what happened was a little bit too much aggressiveness and trust on people's part for taking in updates, probably in violation of their own policies, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay, so yeah, part of what I understand, so obviously we're going to be talking about the whole CrowdStrike hack that happened a month or two ago. What I understood that happened was apparently it's just an update that pointed to a file that wasn't there, and people didn't know, and so the computer would reboot when you get the update, and then go look for that update file, and then it couldn't find it.
So one of the reasons that I loved CrowdStrike as a customer was when a bad thing happened, they produced a technical explanation of what went wrong. We'd had some kind of issue. This is pre-CrowdStrike on, I want to say it was Windows 2008 machines, which, you know, obviously that's suboptimal to begin with, but that's why we have CrowdStrike in place in the first place. I'll tell you, I didn't understand all the things because it went so deep into Windows internals that it's just not a part of your job unless you're very, very specialized. But it was all things that you could look up and prove out, like, okay, this makes sense. They understand what happened. They're being transparent about it. I will happily say, oops, they did it again, and were very transparent about the nature of the issue. So let me go ahead and share my screen here because I don't want to talk about anything that's not public knowledge. So,
all right, let me add that. I see nothing up there. We go. Perfect. Go for it.
All right. So what I want to focus on right here is on July 19th, 2024. A rapid response content update was delivered to certain Windows hosts, involving the new capability first released in February 2024. The sensor expected 20 input fields, while the update provided 21 input fields. In this instance, the mismatch resulted in an out-of-bounds memory read, causing a system crash. So they built on a new capability, clearly didn't have the same level of testing around it that they should have had for other things. Faz, you're a developer. How do you feel about this?
Well, I kind of feel like there should be a QA department to actually run through this process of rebooting and or just run through this whole process of updating. Right?
And I can tell you that the QA for the sensor had to this point been top notch, right? I mean, the way CrowdStrike works, you know, I tell people your typical antivirus is, you know, it's kind of like a mask. You can't breathe through it, you can't eat through it. It sucks. CrowdStrike lives more like Ring Zero, right? It has visibility into interprocess communication that other tools simply do not have. Obviously, to keep that running, you need top-notch QA, automated testing, and these things were there and working very well. But the other thing you can see, and I'll point to an article from Semaphore, actually, about it later on, the engineers kept getting bled off. The ones who would speak freely about, the issues they saw. They were very discouraged from doing so. And, well, you see what happens when you don't listen to your engineers. But the thing that really struck me is that a 20 versus 21 fields crashing, that's rookie mistake, man. That's amateur hour. I'm paying bottom dollar. I'm bringing in interns. Like, a professional developer should not be making that mistake, even without a QA department, right? You shouldn't need a QA to do that for you.
So is it that CrowdStrike was kind of drawing down their employees? I've noticed that all across the tech sector right now, is nobody's hiring.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, it's the same kind of practices you see everywhere, right? You puff up the numbers, make the company look good to acquire, and axe people indiscriminately. But if you don't get the fact that your employees aren't fungible, and especially something that's going to require deep technical knowledge like CrowdStrike, they're very not fungible. This is the kind of thing you're going to get. It's worth pointing out that George Kurtz, the CEO of CrowdStrike, he came from a little company called McAfee, and he sees exactly, right? He sees, okay, this is strangling people. This is, people can't get their work done because it's such a piece of shit. But to repeat the same kind of management practices, across the industry that are causing what's gloriously known as shitification, it kind of boggles my mind. It's like, you do realize that you're a part of the problem here, right? You don't just yell at nerds and that fixes anything, because that doesn't.
So my question, and I, when it happened, this is immediately what pops into my head. I wonder how it is that this can be so deeply embedded that it renders the box completely useless at that point. I mean, how does it get that deeply embedded into that system layer like that?
I can't tell you how it gets there, but I can tell you it was designed to do so. Like, I'll give some examples of the kind of visibility it has. If I just bring up Mimikatz out of the blue, are you guys familiar with it at all?
I've heard it, but I don't know what it is.
So you might have noticed that when you're logged onto a Windows machine, you can access other network resources without entering your password every time, right? You've got credentials stored in memory somewhere. Well, one of the processes that stores it is something called lsas.exe.
LSAS. Now that I knew. I know that one, yeah.
Yep. And what Mimikatz does is, by, I can't speak to the technical detail, but I can tell you that it talks through interprocess communication to lsas.exe and yanks those creds out of memory. What your typical antivirus does, like, Microsoft Defender, it might look for a process hash, right? So, okay, the hash of the executable is this. Oh, it's Mimikatz. I want to stop it. Fair. An experiment I did personally with CrowdStrike's agent was, I took, I want to say it was Hyperion, which effectively encrypts an executable, which is probably overkill. You just really need to change the hash. But even in that situation, CrowdStrike said, wait a minute. You're not supposed to be talking to LSAS. Killed the process immediately. Defender didn't do that. Nothing else did that. So I can't tell you how it got there, because I am not that level of, Windows expert or even, kernel expert. But at that kind of level of visibility, that's why I use the brainstem metaphor. That's how deep in it is.
Now, are they continuing along that same path, or have they made a process change so that if there's a boo-boo again, it isn't going to wipe out basically everybody being able to log on? Do you know that? I mean, I don't know what you know or what you don't know or what you can say or what you can't say.
I mean, I can definitely tell you that there were processes in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening, right? What it kind of speaks to for me is when you have somebody that's maybe like a relatively novice developer that's working on a big legacy system. Faz, you might remember some of those that we worked on together. Wink, wink. One thing people might do is make a new component altogether that's not beholden to all those crusty old QA processes. And that is a great way to end up in this situation. Now, that is, I don't want to say speculation on my part, but inference, right? That says in the article that CrowdStrike produced, hey, it's a new feature, which means that maybe people were writing new code that wasn't covered by existing QA.
Got it.
Now, whether they are responding to it appropriately, I definitely can't tell you that. I'm not there anymore. I left of my own accord because, among other reasons, I wasn't happy with the things I was working on at all. I think they characterized folks as being disgruntled. And like, okay, I'm not happy. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. That's ad hominem, right?
I would think so. And as being a cybersecurity expert, I mean, things change so ridiculously fast. You have to be able to stay one step ahead when everybody else is 5 steps behind. Where do you see this space going in the future? In other words, it's hard for me to ask this question because it has so much context behind it. Do you see that? Let me put it this way. Do you see that this space is changing faster than people can keep up with it? Or is it the opposite in that people are keeping up just fine, but there's no communication going on?
I think the perception of the former is what's causing a lot of problems. It's not moving that fast. People are talking about all these shiny new exploits. Everything's exploitable. Okay. Everything. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of will. Most of the time, the attacks you see are published, known vulnerabilities, usually ones that have been around a really long time that have some kind of public exploit code available because those are the easiest things. Likewise, the biggest hits to a lot of organizations financially are actually what's called business email compromise by the FBI. And it's not technical at all. You get email credentials for somebody in like accounts payable or accounts receivable. You hang on their inbox until they're emailing about doing a large wire transfer. You throw in another response in the thread. Oopsie, send it to this account instead. It's incredibly common. I forget the number. Could be looked up pretty easily. I think the number of losses reported are in the billions. But someone please correct me on that if I'm wrong. But nobody wants to talk about it because it's embarrassing. It's not terribly technical. And yet it's one of the biggest problems. I mean, ransomware, also a huge issue. CrowdStrike's great at dealing with that. But I don't understand why people aren't talking about the other than just sheer embarrassment.
It's difficult. It really is. At my day job, we had 2 security incidents over the past. I've been there 14 years, and we've had 2 major. We had a ransomware attempt. Thankfully, we were able to thwart it. And at the second one was very, very, very sneaky. And it was one of the first ones that we had before the ransomware. And I'm looking at the network, and I see all these strange folders. And it says executables, Looking Glass, and like a couple of these other things. And so I emailed IT and I said, hey, these weren't here like a week ago. What are these things? And they said, "Oh, I wouldn't worry about it. Somebody's probably, you know, just storing some." And I said, "No, these are like executable files and all this kind of stuff." I said, "I think someone's in our system." And the guy sends back and he goes, "Quit being an alarmist. It's fine." It wasn't.
So alert fatigue's a thing.
Right. So I think that that's why it's gotten to this point. So my long-winded point here is that I do think that the CrowdStrike attempt was valid, and even if they made new code and blew it on the Q&A, they're trying to automate it so that fatigue doesn't play into it as much as it has in the past, right? So I see a good attempt there. What do you think? I mean, you're a cybersecurity consultant, right? So when you go in and you talk to these companies and these people about how they can up that and get their awareness up, where's the industry going with that? Is it moving towards more automated type solutions or custom solutions?
Wow. To my horror, the answer appears to be the worst possible combination of both. I'm a big believer in let's get the baselines right. Let's get the fundamentals right. And there's a lot of market around what they call SOAR, security, something automated response, which is gluing stuff together with tools that look a lot like Microsoft Power Automate.
Oh, no.
Doesn't, yeah, right?
I've tried that. That doesn't work very well.
I mean, it kind of does until the abstraction starts leaking. And then you've got to be a developer anyway, so why didn't you just use Bash or PowerShell? Or something more robust? But it never, these things, they generate tickets, right? That's what they're typically used for. And that feels wrong to me, right? We're using automation to generate work for people. Now, what I would tell people these days, as much as you can, start fresh, do things right. But if you've got IAS exposed to the internet, make sure that the process running it doesn't have administrative privileges on the box. Make sure it can't write to its own folders, because one of the most common attacks on websites, it isn't extracting personal data or whatever. Who the hell can monetize that? It's getting what they call a web shell in the box, basically just an ASP page that can spawn cmd.exe. That's it, right? That's all it needs to be able to do to wreak total havoc. If it can't write to INETpub, you're fine. Like, why should your service account running IIS have access to that in the first place? Otherwise, there's a lot of talk about zero trust, which there's a lot of talk, and people decided it means a lot of things. And one of the best implementations I saw of that was, well, why does Office staff need access to a VPN to begin with? Like, they're doing everything in the cloud anyway. And you start moving things off a network where, everyone has this legacy access, everything's wired in with AD, and a lot of problems suddenly start going away, right? It comes back down to least privileges. Have you heard that joke before? Least privilege?
Mm-mm.
It seems like one of the oldest things. I mean, just don't give people access to stuff they don't need, and periodically review and remove access to things they don't need anymore.
Well, but we can't get our work done unless you give me a lot of privileges, because I don't know, things aren't like all equalized out yet. And each developer that comes in, each worker that comes in requires a different set of permissions, which apparently the IT department can't keep up with. So you just give
it's tough.
A lot of privilege.
Developers having privileges to the machines and services they work on aren't the problem. It's what I keep seeing a number of organizations is like back office staff has access to these ginormous file shares that you shouldn't have access to, right? It's not really so much the developers that are the problem. It's everybody else that has access to network resources. Most of them. Why should anybody in finance have any access to anything near where your applications or databases are running?
Well, a lot of it, like on that side, the experience that I have with that is that they don't teach people what they can do with it, so they assume people aren't going to be poking around. Now, if they do get compromised, though, the people who compromise them will know where to poke around. There's the
Yes.
gateway. And recently, it was just brought out. You probably saw this. The Linux system basically had a breach with OpenSSH that they just discovered. And it affects every system, whether it's Fedora or Ubuntu or any of them, anything running a Linux-based system. There's a crack to go right around through OpenSSH and take control of any machine remotely. And they just discovered this. Well, they say they just
core
discovered
kernel
this.
thing, maybe.
It's a big
0 days
mess.
are going to happen. The Mossad knew about it.
Yeah, I mean, and you get these, and people don't know what to do. Like the common person, I am no developer, I am no code expert by any means. I'm just very good at it because I love computers. I've learned everything I can, which is better than the average bear out there. But what do people like us do, right? So I have Josephine who's in, receiving at my place, and she has access to too many databases. How can the common person solve their problems on their machine to do the best they can to keep the threats out?
So, there's a couple things going on in that question that I'd like to unpack. But, starting with an OpenSSH vulnerability. Man, the DoD is really smart about this with all the air gapping. But if it doesn't need to be exposed to the public internet, don't expose it to the public internet. Yes, it is possible that you'll get an attacker in your network who figures it out, but you've made it that much more difficult if it's not public. So just not making resources public that don't need to be is a big deal. And you know what? People talk about like NAT on home routers not really being a security feature, but in my mind it is, because it keeps services from being publicly exposed. That's a pretty big deal. Where I would say at an organizational level, the way I tackled kind of like the inverse of that problem, where you're talking about like what can an individual do? Well, ideally, an individual at an organization should know somebody on the security team they can talk to about questions, problems, anything. Now, I tried to be very proactive about that, which is its own fun challenge in a remote distributed environment. But I mean, without that relationship, I don't know what you do, because people aren't empowered to make those decisions on their own machines, right? And they would say it's not their responsibility anyway. If you're thinking about security in terms of your job, and your job isn't security, well, you're being less efficient. You're not doing your job.
Where can you go in and make those changes? How do you approach making those changes with the companies you consult with? Do you tell them they're dumbasses and get out of the way and let me fix this? Or do you go in with a specific plan?
That's what we say when we hang up the phone after talking to them.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. We want to respect people for, the expertise they do bring to the table. We want to build rapport. Calling them dumbasses usually doesn't help. I mean, there's a special kind of masochist who wants that.
TMI.
No, it isn't. It's called transparency, radical transparency. I mean, that's a difficult question. It's going to depend on organization to organization. I try to push really hard. You need to the very same things I'm saying about these guys. We don't call them dumbasses. You know, we don't beat on them for their mistakes. You don't do that to your people either. You treat them with respect. You know, they bring expertise to the table that you do not. They are making money for the business. You do not. Take them seriously and watch things change. I read this whole book by Chris Hadnagy on social engineering. And as I sat down after reading, I was like, you know, the whole point of this book was if you be nice to people, they're more likely to do stuff you care about. And just getting over that siloing thing is a game changer. You know, I felt like, you know, I've seen it in organizations in the past, and if you can't get past that, there's no amount of process, there's no amount of procedure that's going to change a damn thing.
So, do you think that there is a solution to this? How would you approach solving the immediate issue of at least getting some kind of standard set? Faz is really big on standards. So, what are like the top 2 standards you would implement for cybersecurity for those who might be watching us tonight?
I'm not necessarily the biggest on standards. You know, where Faz and I worked together in the past, he was Bert and I'm Ernie. That said,
you shouldn't have said that. We're going to have some fun with that later.
As you should. As you should. I'm mildly excited about CMMC. At least, you know, the versions I've gone through were a pretty reasonable framework. But even so, it's all about adapting it to what your organization is actually doing. Where I was looking at very recently, you know, building out a cloud environment for some hosting of like a particular security tool, I realized, you know, using like EKS, I didn't even need access to the boxes. Like, I did not need to give myself access to the boxes at all. The control plane was good enough for me. And if there was ever a case where it wasn't, that was a problem, right? That means I am doing it wrong. So, I mean, that's where there's opportunities for, you know, greenfield software development to do better. But just blindly following a standard saying, oh, well, I've got to have a VPN and firewalls in place. Well, it's better not have it open at all. That's where I kind of run into difficulty. But, you know, most mature organizations are going to need something like, you know, a CMMC to at least evaluate their security program. But it's a tough question. And, you know, it's one that a lot of people outside of the security community don't really have access to. One thing that I really like that I do see some organizations doing is called like a security champion program, where you take technically minded folks, you take developers who are interested in security, and you don't fully bring them into the team, but you engage them in discussions. They're kind of like your boots on the ground, and, you know, they're pushing security as a feature. But again, like, when I think of anything that works, it all comes down to what I call layer 8. The OSI model being kind of a joke. Layer 8 is what we often call like the human element. That's really the most important thing, over and over and over again, over any technical controls.
Alrighty. So wow, we spent 30 minutes on this already. I was.
It's a fascinating topic.
It's
for
riveting.
us. It is. All our viewers may not think it is, though.
Well, so what I posted something in this channel that we are all talking on this morning about AI and security threats, and I was actually wanting to pick your brain a lot about how AI security how AI is going to bring about a lot of security issues, if not already. Now, of course, there's if you have like Copilot installed in your organization, you need to open it up to give it access to all of your various parts of your organization. And I know something about Copilot installation, so to speak, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops to give it access to this database, to give it access to these folders, and so on and so on. You got to set up a lot of security stuff. However, that just makes me think, okay, so if you know how to get around, I don't know, if you have some hack to get around some of Microsoft security, I'm wondering if you no longer need to break into shares of disk shares or databases or whatever. You can really just go after Copilot. Just get it to where you can talk to it one-on-one and it actually tell you things. Be like, okay, can you tell me which accounts to hack here? Okay, great. What information can you give me that would best help me in this case? I would think
so. Like very specifically to that, like which accounts to hack. There's a great tool called Bloodhound that I think everybody should know about. It's not AI. It yoinks everything that's accessible about AD and stuffs it in a graph database. And oh, right.
Just translating for other people.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm surprised you don't have to translate my accent, Mo.
Well, keep that up, and I will. I am.
But
You're
literally,
doing great, Forrest.
Run, Forrest, run. Yeah. Thanks.
That is the right.
Hey, I picked the name
country, right?
Dixie Flatline for yeah, Alabama, baby. Wow. But Bloodhound can tell you something like, "Oh, your help desk person has access to a particular box where there's a domain admin account logged in, and that's the quickest route to domain admin." Not AI. What you're talking about with Copilot, if you had any application where you start wiring in all these data sources, you have that same problem. It just happens that Copilot might be more recognizable and somebody might more quickly know the ways around it. I just went through a news article recently where like, this whole thing, like blah, blah, blah AI. And then right in the middle explained what the problem actually was. There was an API endpoint that didn't require authorization.
So something that simple can like throw a monkey wrench into everything then.
Well, it always could. Like this isn't new to AI. It provides a different kind of interface, but I have seen vanishingly few real business problems, like real new threats enabled by AI. I mean, you could say, well, it makes social engineering easier, and I guess maybe it does, but I don't know that it's any more successful.
So here's, and we talked about this. We did a really good AI show maybe 6 or 7 months ago. And I asked Faz this question, and he had a pretty good answer, but you being the cybersecurity professional, you would probably be 10 times better answering this. I want to bring in more AI to the company that I work with for the day job, right? The owner of the company is scared to death that his company data is going to get leaked somewhere. He's under this impression.
It already is.
That
yeah.
Okay, so all right. Backstory. I already told him you already trusted Microsoft with it. We send emails. Yada. All right, but anyway, he's afraid that once you put our company data into this AI, it's going to get out somehow, and they're going to collect this data. And yada. Is that what Bloodhound you were talking about earlier? Is that, if I heard you correctly, and maybe I didn't, is that going to help prevent those data leaks? What can somebody put in place if a company wants to use AI as a, for lack of a better way to put it, as a firewall to keep that stuff contained, what you put in it?
I'm going to tell you that I started getting scared the minute you said you wanted more AI in your company, because that's very vague. It's not a business.
Well, that's a buzzword. That's hey,
Exactly.
we want more.
No,
Where can I get some more of that AI?
I'm not just
man?
being a jerk, but
No, please.
where we want to leverage it, where we can, that's great. But you're kind of on the money. Like, okay, let's say I'm using Microsoft Copilot. You have agreements in place with Microsoft that says what they will or won't do with your data. Whether those are worth the paper they're printed on, I mean, that's a question of legal risk, which is its own fun thing.
Right.
That doesn't change. They are a data processor that takes possession of so much of your data. You took that risk when you signed up with Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
That hasn't changed in any meaningful way. As far as data getting out, well, your data is already getting processed on Microsoft servers. You're relying on them not to expose it in any number of ways. Still hasn't changed. Yeah, in terms of the relationship thing, that's there, right? Strangely enough, one of the things I didn't expect, and this is one of the reasons why I like to use the term information security rather than cybersecurity, is how much time I spent looking at contracts, understanding legal ramifications, understanding when we could be litigated, and what the realistic risk of that was. And honestly, if Microsoft abuses your data somehow, you're not going to be alone in that boat, right? But there's probably not a whole hell of a lot that anyone's going to do about it.
Well, it's not so much Microsoft, but if we wanted to, they have the LLMs that you can contain, right? So you can take an instance of Claude or even ChatGPT, and you can pull that in, under the network umbrella and have it customized and all that. The fear is that we're not going to be technically sound enough to contain that data, right? Because we're going to have sensitive company stuff on there. And that was my argument, which is what I was explaining earlier, and saying, look, we're sending sensitive data on email to each other who's authorized to get it anyway.
Yep.
But he didn't like that. He's afraid that, someone's going to somehow it's collecting and training itself on this and it's going to go rogue. And, I want to be able to bring those things in to where I can automate, because Power Automate sucks, right? I want to be able to use the power of Claude or ChatGPT to streamline our business. And Faz, man, dude, blew my mind, right? So when we had that last AI show, duct tape around the head to keep it from exploding. He was like, you can set it so that if you mention something in there, it'll tell you, hey, these two other people were having a conversation about that the other day. You might want to get a hold of them, which I think is cool. That would freak the shit out of everybody at my office, right? But I do think that that's the direction that we're going, and I think that that is what's going to set companies up for success in the future, because I tried to tell them, if we're not doing it, I guarantee you some of our competition will be doing that. And it's going to give them a leg up. And so what I'm trying to do is push that narrative of how can we safely put AI integrated deeper into our company that'll give us that advantage without compromising his security so much.
I want to make a point here that Dixie here is saying is, he said that the first thing he was worried about was your boss asking that he needs to have AI, and you're repeating that now. So the question I think might need to be asked is, why does he want AI?
We all want AI. It's not like
he's
dying.
I mean, like, just that use case.
No, it's not like he's dying for it, but he knows that it will help us. And so he's just afraid that the company's secrets, he is extraordinarily privacy based. He's crazy on the privacy thing, and he doesn't want his company data being released outside, which I get it. I totally get it. But at the same time, I want us to move forward. So and get into this age.
there is a great exercise called threat modeling. Now, I could use all kinds of big words here, but what you do is you think about who might be after it, what they might do to get it, and then what you might do to stop them. Now, you're talking about putting Claude on locally, like on your servers. That's fantastic. You have control over those machines. Um, how's data going to leak out? Well, it doesn't just leak, right? It's not like plumbing. You don't just like poke a hole in a computer and the data's come out.
Computers
cool
run
if it
on
did.
smoke. We all know this. When you let the smoke out, they stop working.
But it kind of comes back to, hey, let's do the basics. Do you remember a time when it wasn't assumed that every machine could just reach out to the internet and talk to any computer it wanted to? I do. And I can definitely tell you that one of the big, brilliant initiatives at CrowdStrike that I really supported was ensuring that we were configured that way, that we had limited network egress. And that just means we can't just phone up anybody we want and get whatever we want from any machine. Once that's intentional, like your servers are only communicating with the things they should, then how is data going to leak out? I mean, I guess if somebody comes in and does something fancy, but honestly, the odds that somebody is that interested in your data and that they can monetize it that well, that's pretty small. That's why ransomware is such a big problem, is because it's one of the easiest ways to monetize access to somebody's servers. I mean, what the hell can they do with the data? Maybe go name and shame you with it?
Well,
I mean,
they,
if you're
they
not
don't want
making
the
money off of it,
competition. He doesn't want the competition getting a hold of our data. That's the big thing. I work in an industry that is very, very tight, small, and competitive. And those who have those advantages do way better than others who don't, which is why we've been successful. And he doesn't want to risk pushing out something that could potentially compromise that.
Is AI going to make it?
Yeah.
He thinks AI is going to make it easier.
So look, he doesn't like me and he likes me at the same time. He lets me experiment, but he gets nervous, right? So I told him, because he called a bunch of us who were the tech experts in the company into a meeting, and he said, "What exactly are you doing with AI here at the company?" And we told him what we were doing, and I use it to help write emails. And he's like, first question out of his mouth is, he's like, "You know what? Have you put any company data into that?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I've done it just to try and streamline things. Would I love to throw my reports in there to get it to help me automate that and be able to ask it questions about the data? Absolutely. I would love to do that. I'm not going to do that because he doesn't want me to do that. But I want to be able to get to that point to where if I throw one of my reports in there and I can ask it questions to help me interpret that data and provide better data to him, I would absolutely love that. So that's where I'm trying to take this corner with him. But his concern is once you put it in there, you can't take it back out.
Yeah, the mindset shift that needs to happen is a data leak is not doom. It is a risk. And businesses take risks every day, usually much bigger than that, right? Even if your data is being used to train an LLM, your very specific data, I constantly hear bitching that AI can't do 2 + 2. So it speaks to me that maybe there's not a reliable way to get that data out, even if it's technically in there. So it's a risk. How much of a risk is it? That's pretty tough to say, but I don't think the likelihood is high. And I think there are bigger fish to fry. Another like InfoSec concept that I would love people to understand, because I actually kind of do this in my personal life as well, is Write down all the bad things that could happen. All right. Assign a score of 1 to 5 of how likely is it. 1 is not likely at all. 5 is I'm sure it's going to happen. Then assign an impact score of it, 1 to 5. 1 is it's not a big deal. 5 is it's catastrophic. We all going to die. You multiply those two numbers, you sort by it, and you have a great list of what you should be focusing on in what order. And when you start talking out those problems and put it out that way, stuff like, somebody might put something in an LLM that might give someone a competitive advantage. If they figure out all of this, that starts to shrink past the fact that, you've got a domain admin account with a password that everybody knows in a certain town in Indiana. Not to name and shame anybody.
No. So let me stay on your subject. Can you explain to the audience the difference between an LLM and ChatGPT? What is an LLM?
I use the terms kind of interchangeably. That ChatGPT would be an example of an LLM, a large language model. Mostly, it's so I don't say AI over and over and over again because it's such an overloaded word. Honestly, GPTs are probably a more specific term for what I'm talking about. I can't even remember what it stands for, but generative something transformers.
What do they call it when it's run locally? Because you can have AI. There's open source AI.
I think it's still a GPT, but you'll see the terms GPT and LLM used kind of interchangeably.
Okay.
In my experience. But there's a lot of other stuff, like the machine learning classifiers, the kind of things that, when you go into Google Photos and you type in like Faz and you get pictures of yourself, those were called AI for a really long time until LLMs became a thing. So I think it's useful to kind of disambiguate a bit.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Zorro.
So I want to go a little bit further with this. And like I said, I was worried about security threats with AI and stuff like that. I think in about 5 to 10 years, probably 5, closer to 5 nowadays, that AI is going to be in everything. I mean, in your toaster, in your car, anything that's doing something is going to benefit from AI. So an example is I'm writing code. There's a lot of code that I'm writing that I don't need to write, like unit tests. Unit tests are great because they exercise your object model. And I don't mind writing 1 or 2, but it gets very repetitive because you're writing the same test over and over again. You're testing different parts of each method. So I'd love to be able to, and I'm sure that this probably even already exists, where you can just point the AI toward these objects you want to test and say, hey, write a bunch of unit tests for this. Now, of course, with AI right now, you're going to spend a lot of time reviewing what it puts out. And I think people don't realize that when they think that they can get code written by AI. They think they could just copy and paste. You're doing a lot more reviewing now. Like, did it do what I wanted to do? And a lot of times you got to kind of, you got to help it refine, or it just blows out stuff all the time. If you're making data objects or something, you want to point it to a database and say, okay, I want to talk to this database. Can you make a data layer for me? Flop, and it throws it all out there. And then you might want to customize that. So I can see work becoming a lot easier for me as a developer. But there's a lot of stuff in there where AI can take advantage of me. It can write code that I might not know has bad security. It can certainly record my conversations with it if I start talking to it a lot, and even tell certain things about my personality. Like I was talking to Claude and ChatGPT yesterday about my interview style here, and I'm a bit ADHD. And so it was telling me, it was like, okay, yeah, Faz seems to have this indirect interview style. Well, that's really interesting. And so I can look at that and go, okay, I need to be more direct with my questions. But the same thing goes when you're using AI with code or with your toaster or your car or whatever. AI can turn around and remember everything you said to it. Then you can ask the AI, tell me how to hack Faz. Tell me how to hack Titan, whatever. So I'm seeing all sorts of weird security angles that I never thought of before.
Yeah, and I mean that's good thinking. I mean that's excellent thinking. I mean the first thing I would tell you is pretty much everything you described. You take your developer hat off and you put your team lead hat on. I mean, you got the same kind of problems when you're working with a team of developers, right? They could be introducing all kinds of vulnerabilities. They could be doing any kind of number of nasty things behind your back. Heck, with flesh and blood developers, you get problems like they could be trying to bang your wife, even. Otherwise,
okay. So the so the AI can probably tell you. So I figured out that Faz has problems with his love life. That's an angle.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I say if you don't like that, you probably really wouldn't like the whole X key score thing that Snowden exposed back in the day,
What's that?
Oh, nothing that anybody on this call would know about, but I mean, you're already in social media emitting all this data that somebody could use to figure out the same things about yourself, right? So, again, not really a new problem.
Well, AI
could be weaponized faster.
AI, yeah, I was going to say faster. AI can certainly weaponize it a lot faster. It can analyze the data multiple ways. You can any number of questions you can ask. See, before I might get, if I wanted to hack you, I might get a whole bunch of data about the interactions, and then I'd set a team to go work on it. Maybe a team of psychologists and computer programmers, and eventually like 2 or 3 people on this team would be able to figure out a vector to kind of get into you. Well, I don't need that anymore. I could just do that with an AI. I can ask ChatGPT, like I was last night. I asked ChatGPT, okay, how can I be more direct? Or what's the way to confuse Faz when you're asking him questions? it's actually say a lot of nonsensical things like Titan does. So.
Stop it all comes down to things that my ass.
It all comes down to things that a human operator could do just a hell of a lot faster. And I mean that's been a worry for me actually. Like that's the thing that freaks me out a little bit. You especially if you play with ChatGPT 4.0's new real-time feature. You imagine you got a device in your pocket that's got access to audio around you all the time. And yeah, it could absolutely enable some 1984 shit at that point when it can go, well, is this person talking about some undouble plus good things? Are they planning a revolution? Well, that's an easy prompt. And it could produce an answer enough of the time that would be interesting that it could be useful to an authority. Yeah, you do end up with problems like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Maybe it'd be some sort of score where it'd be like, wow, Faz is 60% likely to do something wrong. Your company can do it to you. It'd be like, wow, Faz is 60% likely to fuck off during the day. I mean, all sorts of things.
Way higher.
So I'm just thinking, the kinds of ways. Now, of course, we can do the reverse since we all have phones. There's Big Brother and then there's Little Brother. Little Brother is where we're all spying on everybody else around us with similar tools. Well, we'd like to think that the government has much better tools. Something happened.
We lost him.
I know he looked around. He looked to his right and up he's back.
There he goes.
I'm in a space with other people and that space is about to close down. So I'm going to have to abscond for the evening, but,
well, it has been very fun talking to you.
Hey, Dixie, likewise, thanks a lot for coming on tonight. This was an amazing conversation.
I'd be happy to do it again. And honestly, I don't necessarily like to pitch my consulting services, but I would love to sign an NDA and go in depth about what what's going on in your org.
Very cool. I will
All right.
keep that in mind. I'm pushing hard over there, really hard. I want to get that integrated.
Yeah, I think I'd love to see it happen, and I think you can get there. And I have some experience in making those arguments with folks who are resistant for reasons. They're good reasons, you know.
They are.
Part of it is just respecting that.
I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to discount him. He's brilliant. He's done a great job building a huge organization from very little. But at the same time, we have to keep up and compete. Otherwise, we don't exist.
Yep. Exactly. Otherwise, someone's getting your lunch. Well, thanks a bunch,
All right.
gents, and
See you later, Dixie.
talk soon.
See you
Bye.
later.
All right.
Hey, this was a good show. I mean, a lot of it was probably dry for our normal viewers, but I think there's a ton of information here that is extraordinarily valuable, and his experience at CrowdStrike and what he was able to share is really relevant. It is,
Well,
and it kind of
what
explained what happened.
Well, what I find interesting, and he really kind of explained that to me, is apparently, you know, CrowdStrike was doing very good at what they were doing, and then they just got a bit cocky, and then maybe they had to rush that patch out that failed or something like that. And once that happens, you know, that's where all these bad things happen. So, and you
can't put the
get
genie back in
cocky.
the bottle.
Well, and it's amazing, actually. What gets me from a I'll just make up a term, a threat actor point of view, is I thought CrowdStrike is the #1 like Windows update utility out there for businesses and stuff like that. Boy, you don't have to hack Windows; you just need to hack them. So now, if they're doing, now they've kind of exposed themselves as messing up. Okay, what else has messed up about them? Are you there,
Well,
Mr.
and that's
Zorro? Oh, there.
yeah, he's there.
I'm back.
That's
Sorry,
why I
guys.
asked that question early on about, oh my God, you know, help me understand how deeply you're ingrained in Windows to be able to shut everything down like that, because that was the first thing I thought of as soon as I saw that was how did Microsoft let somebody get that deep into their system where their boo-boo shuts down the entire thing?
Well, it wasn't Microsoft's boo-boo. Yeah, Microsoft, evidently, their problem was that they trusted somebody. Or because you can hack Microsoft. I mean, you can hack Windows. You can go in Windows and hack their files and stuff like that. So it might be that Microsoft didn't let them as much as they just used an undocumented way to to brick things in order to do their updates. And so when it's undocumented, it's not exactly against the rules. And if Microsoft knows that you're doing it, it's like, okay, well, we don't have to fix that problem as long as you're using it to update. That's nice, but so I don't think it's exactly Microsoft's fault. I think it's CrowdStrike's fault. But why did they allow CrowdStrike to even be able to do that kind of thing? That's the problem.
So as we wrap this up, I do want to kind of stand up and slam my dick on the table for a minute.
This is a family show, Titan.
I don't know if you've been following crypto Twitter lately, but there is a documentary coming out.
I called that a documentary.
Documentary from HBO that they say they're really pumping hard that they've got Satoshi pinned down. And guess what the people who are the insiders are saying it is?
It's not Craig Wright. Sorry.
Len Sassaman, which is who I announced on this show several times, who I think Satoshi is.
So you realize that you have also announced other people too.
Right. No, but my ultimate guess.
You've announced that you announced Hal as well. Okay, you've announced a lot of people.
Hal is in there. Yes.
But anyway, so if you've announced a bunch of people, you saying, well, I got this guy a long time ago. No, he's one of many. Okay.
No.
In fact,
I told you my final guess. And we'll have to throw this into ChatGPT, but my final guess was Len Sassaman. And so we'll see if this susses out.
Well, we'll see. It's entertaining. Whoever did this, well, it says he's dead. First of all, died.
Yes,
in 2011.
And we talked about it on that show when I brought that up, and you said, "Oh, poo-poo on that," as you usually do. And I said, I came up and you threw me the conspiracy. You shot me with the arrows, and I said it could be that he faked his death just to put an end to him so that people wouldn't track him down. It's possible, but he allegedly committed suicide because of depression. But he, in my opinion, after watching the documentary that I watched, which is separate from this HBO thing, it's completely different. He is the most likely suspect in my mind.
So if you watch the documentary, wouldn't it be somebody else's suspicion and you're just kind of parroting that? By the way, why is Mr. Zorro hidden? Oh, he's eating.
I don't know. Oh, he might have dropped off and then we didn't let him back in. You got to get him the password over here so he can get in.
My 2 cents is it may or may not be any of these people, Hal or Len or whatever. Okay. Sure, I would. I thought. Well, I don't want to go into that too much. The reason I tell you you're a conspiracy theorist is because you go on polemics about this kind of stuff. This is the person. This is it. And I'm like, dude, we don't know.
Yes. Maybe. So I view, again, and we can argue left and right.
That's why people
and we'll probably start another argument, but evidence is interpretive. Everybody's going to see different things from whatever evidence is presented. So I saw a couple of great documentaries.
I like how you just throw that down as a root thing. Like, okay, so evidence is actually not facts, but it's what people think those facts are.
It is. And we argued this last week in the chat.
That's because that's the root problem, because that's what happens before any thing that you say. You're like, okay, the sky is green. But before you say the sky is green, you're like, okay, so color is not what you think it is. It's interpretive.
No.
And then you go, the sky is green. And
evidence is perception. Everybody perceives evidence different.
So
I gave you the example of the hospital. You got some good
philosophy in there because it's a philosophical thing that, perception of reality and stuff like that. However, I think what are you doing? You're going too far. Oh, that's Satoshi. Anyway, I think you're going too far. It's that poor guy named Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yes, Satoshi.
No, that poor guy named Satoshi Nakamoto that the press fingered, and his name's Dorian Nakamoto. I think his middle name's Satoshi. Anyway,
where he from? India?
No, he's from Japan.
No. Do you saw the Netflix? No.
Anyway, what I was saying.
You saw it, Titan?
What I was saying is that
I don't think I saw that.
Throw down a root statement. And then you'll just start going from there. And all you're doing is you've already said what your criteria is. Like, so the sky is green. Therefore, there are fish that swim in the sky. And I'm like, wait a minute.
No.
I don't care about the fish. I care about you just saying that the sky is green. Now, when you're talking about mysteries and stuff like that, that's fine. You can offer those things, but don't lay down the assumption in the beginning. Like, because evidence is interpretive. Well, yes and no.
It is. It is.
The whole concept of evidence is it's not an interpretation.
All right. So please don't interrupt me. So we agreed that we would let the audience decide what evidence they wanted to believe.
Okay,
right?
just don't lay down.
Let me give you the example of where this all comes from, because backstory on this for those listening. Faz and I spent literally 10 hours straight arguing during COVID about hospital data. All right.
This is at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah, it was. So here's why I push this so hard about evidence being based on perception. Faz, of course, with his data mind, he says, let's go look at the data. So we both went to the exact same website at the exact same hospital and pulled up the exact same data. And here's where the interpretation comes in. Because it was reported that this hospital was 90% full with COVID patients. Overwhelmed, right? So here was what the data told us. The data said that, using round numbers to make it easy for people listening, there was 1,000 total beds in that hospital. Of those 1,000 beds, only 200 beds were being used, and 180 of those beds were filled. But they said the hospital was 90% of capacity. So the interpretive data on that, there's actually 1,000 beds. So 180 people is only 18% full if you look at it that way. Whereas if you look at it Faz's way, there's only 200 beds they're using for that. So 180 people make it 90% full. That's why I say evidence is not concrete. You have to look at the underlying context to see what that data means.
Okay, so let me remind everybody that this was an argument that Titan lost about 2.5 years ago, because I walked through and I let you have your say, so it's my turn. So this is an argument that he lost with me because I literally pointed, he made an assumption, and it took me about 5 hours to get him to nail down that he was talking about something in particular. Now, my memory is pretty vague on our conversation because, again, this was 2.5 years ago. But what I remember him talking about is he was talking about data regarding people walking into a hospital. And I was able to figure out that his numbers came from data regarding how many beds were full. So we have walk-in patient data versus bed data. And basically, I traced down these articles that he was talking about, and I explained to him that how his articles he talked about pointed to specific type of data, like beds versus walk-ins. What happened there was then he insisted that the data included something else as well. So there's a lot more to this that I don't remember, and so I'm not going to go too much further. All I want to say is I get what you're saying about how evidence can change depending upon an interpretation that you want to push. However, if you're looking at data, if your data is incomplete, then you can make a leap and you can say, I think it's this, or my interpretation is what makes it complete. In the case that we were talking about, and this was on another computer. I don't even have this information up anymore. The stuff that we were talking about, there was specifically bed data versus walk-ins. He had half of a point regarding the walk-ins, but the bed stuff didn't make sense to me. And again, I don't remember the rest of this. All I do recall is him going, that's a good point. That's what he does when I'm right.
We both won, right? So you can interpret that data both ways. You really can.
What you're trying to say is that you are trying to say that the evidence, that there was missing data that would cause you to be able to insert what you think in there. My thought at the time was that there was no missing data. So now Titan has tried to relitigate this with me many times in the last 2.5 years, and now he's brought it out in a podcast as well.
No, so
But
it's an
I do wanna-
example. I bring it out as an example
but I
of
wanna
how
make it
data
clear
can
that-
be interpreted differently.
So it certainly can be, and of course politicians do that all the time, but there's a difference between, so if you have good data, it's going to match everything of what you say. If you have bad data, it's either going to be wrong or it's going to have missing pieces. So people certainly interpret data, but the whole concept of evidence is what I'm getting at. If you're giving evidence, evidence in and of itself is not something that you interpret. It's something you use to reinforce, to point, to support what you're asserting. If you're going to support a specious assumption and you don't provide evidence, that's just your own creativity. So
Well,
I'm trying to get
again,
at the concept.
We can use a different example, right? Let's use FazRadio as an example. If I were to go to you and pull up some data on one of our shows and make a blanket statement, right?
Views.
And this is exactly where I'm going. So I can point to that data and say, "Oh my God, this had 13,224 views. It is this is the best viewed FazRadio ever."
And that would be my Oprah TikTok, actually, where I talked about
No,
Oprah
it was
giving
26,000. That one was 26,000.
Well, I like the Oprah
But-
one because there's some evidence that people liked that one apparently.
Well, hang on. All right, so that's a
Some
great example. That's a great example. So that was the best viewed show ever. Now,
Okay,
if we dig deeper and look at the data deeper and realize that of those 13,000 people that viewed it, they only clicked on it and stayed for 3 seconds versus another show that maybe 500 people viewed, but viewed the whole show. Is that really my blanket statement of that's the best viewed show ever? Is that actually accurate? That's
So
how data can be blanket statements on data. There's evidence that shows that it was the most viewed, but was it really?
That's a good point because with TikTok, in my opinion, there's not enough evidence because, first of all, I still have a hard time believing that TikTok's numbers are correct. I'd need to see more evidence from them. Well, yeah, because it's China spying on the United States.
What? Zorro is throwing out bombs over here while we're arguing. What do you mean the government is Satoshi, Zorro? What the hell are you doing? We're arguing over here and he's throwing bombs in the comments.
In the comments.
Titan, that was like, what, 20 minutes ago?
Was it?
You're slow.
I just happened to glance down while I was looking at that. I'm like, what the fuck is he saying?
I don't know. I just want to put that out there, bro. I don't know.
Okay, so I like
I'm just going Titan style right now. It's a conspiracy, maybe. Hey.
So yeah, I agree that TikTok has said that one of our videos got 26,000 views. I think that's a weird oddity, and I'd like to see it occur more often. And I would need more evidence if I'm, I need to see more. Unfortunately, TikTok doesn't tell you how they get their numbers, probably because it's some sort of proprietary kind of thing. Or maybe I need to see more evidence that their numbers are correct. Regardless,
that's exactly why the government is trying to take it over.
If we accept it as correct, I think there's enough evidence to say that maybe people liked us talking about Oprah. And really, to me, views really have to do with the algorithm. I said the word Oprah. In fact, I have a feeling that if I were to say in this video, Oprah gave people new cars, but then people got hit with high tax bills. That's going to raise. I bet that's going to raise the views on this.
You know what? I'm going to pull this as a short, and we're going to throw it up, and we're going to see if it gets more views too.
So I want to see that happen on YouTube also. Yeah,
it would be the same thing. The thing that I just post in there that the government could be Satoshi. You know how many people would be thinking on that?
Okay, so here's the thing about the crazy amount of headlines saying his identity has been revealed. Somebody would have leaked that if it was in a show. If that show actually told you his real identity, there'd be leaks all over the place as to what it is. I think it's just like some sort of ghost thing or the Bermuda Triangle. It's gonna be like, oh my God, this kind of happened, and people are all kind of wondering, makes you think.
So listen, that is, and we talked about that, Zorro. It is absolutely possible that the government knows who Satoshi is, because there was a meeting when Satoshi, if you remember back, Gavin, shortly after Satoshi handed it to Gavin posted, he put up a post that said, before anybody starts talking rumors, yes, I'm going to meet with the NSA. Yes, I'm taking a few people with me. Yes, we're going to go talk about Bitcoin. They're curious about it. So on the other side, you had the government, and there's a video out there of it right now where they met with a group of people who they called Satoshi. And it is possible, I think the government knows who they are. I don't share that feeling that the government is Satoshi, but I do think they know who Satoshi is.
See, and this is how I like to talk about conspiracies, by the way. Go ahead, Zorro.
No, and he's right. In the Netflix documentary, they say that they really believe it's a group of people. That's what they say. They said it pretty clear there that that's what they believe. That's what the government believes. Who is the real first person behind? They don't know. They still
does
don't
it
know.
Really matter at this point? Because no matter what, it's kind of like you could be a person who invented an unbreakable safe. Once you've made the safe and it's unbreakable, even the creator's not going to be able to break into it. So I think knowing who Satoshi right now isn't going to help anything. So if it is the government or if it is an individual, it's interesting, but it's kind of too late. So I think it kind of doesn't matter anymore who it might be.
Well, it will affect it, because let's say Zorro is right, and let's say the government is Satoshi. That will change how people use it. The people who are using it to be the cyberpunks and who are adamantly on the libertarian side want to extract value from the system and put it into Bitcoin aren't going to use it anymore if they realize the government is behind it.
Okay, so one of the reasons I got
into
Bitcoin is because if it was the government, if it was an individual, it's the version that's Bitcoin right now cannot be controlled by anyone unless they get all the miners. Okay, so yes, the government could have made it, but it's out of their control. All you need to do is look at the source code to find out. That's why people got into it, is because they looked at the source. Enough smart people looked at the source code. They go, okay, it doesn't matter who made it. It's out of the government's control. So if the government messed up, nobody would abandon it. You get some people that would abandon it, but all the smart people, we're gonna know, and we'll still use it.
Rumors are 100%. It doesn't matter if there's any kind of inkling. If we came on FazRadio and said, "Hey, I have a video of Faz fucking a goat," right? That's gonna put perceptions in people's minds, whether or not I show the video. So if someone says the government created it and there's credible people that talk about that, then that's going to put a quash on it regardless.
Well, it's decentralized anyway. It's too late. It's like the government accidentally releasing a virus and the virus getting out of control, which is a conspiracy. So it's already out there. It's already happened. So yeah, you can trust it because you know it's decentralized. Now, do you know certain altcoins are decentralized? We don't know about that completely, but we know Bitcoin is decentralized.
Well, so you don't know if the government maybe, or some sort of entities of the government knew about Bitcoin protocol
I'm saying it didn't
way
matter. It doesn't
before,
matter.
and then someone there just drop up the whole protocol out there to be free.
Sure.
You don't know that.
Okay. It doesn't.
Well-
It doesn't matter. It's out there. It's decentralized now. So
Yeah.
it's too late.
Nobody,
However it happened.
nobody's found a backdoor yet, but that doesn't
Okay.
mean that one doesn't exist.
Okay, let's be clear about what a backdoor means with Bitcoin. Okay, so
Yeah.
right now anybody can modify Bitcoin and make their own miner and distribute it to their own miners. That's right, because it's all about the accusations. The accusations is what makes it interesting. So, okay, there is no there can logically be no backdoor in Bitcoin because what the miners choose is what becomes the main Bitcoin. As soon as it's realized that there's let's just say the current fork of Bitcoin has a backdoor in it. The previous fork before that, or a new one, it's somebody just hard fork it without the backdoor, and then any money you had on current Bitcoin would be on the fork, and then people would just keep using that new one. So go ahead, put a backdoor in it. Go ahead, get everybody to adopt it. But as soon as it gets realized or seen, it can't be unseen. Bam, there's a new fork. Everybody's going to flip over to that. Period.
Okay, so here's another thing that I watched a video not very long ago. It was a couple weeks ago, and it caused me to kind of stop and do some deep thinking. Regardless if Satoshi's alive or not, okay, it doesn't matter. Those keys are out there somewhere. And let's pretend for a moment. Let's pretend that Hal is Satoshi. And let's pretend that his wife now has these keys. And 2 years from now, she decides she's going to go into that wallet, the main Satoshi wallet that has a little over 1 million Bitcoin in it, and decide she's going to break it up into 4 separate wallets and send 250,000 Bitcoin to 4 separate wallets. Again, Satoshi doesn't matter. Who that is or what it is or whatever it is doesn't matter. If anything moves out of that wallet, to me, that's a backdoor. Because that says that someone who controls that much Bitcoin has the ability to affect the network.
Okay, I think you're okay.
I said, "Whoa, that's pretty big."
Wait, let's unpack that a little bit because I want to make sure that you're trying to assert a process backdoor rather than a programmatic backdoor. A process backdoor meaning somebody could make it decentralized by moving that Bitcoin. How much Bitcoin does Satoshi have? Apparently, I thought it was 66 million or 66 billion.
It's a little over 1 million Bitcoin.
Okay, so if he has 1 million Bitcoin, so he has the most Bitcoin, right?
That we know about, yes. Obviously, we don't know if 10 people have smaller wallets that equal more than 1 million, but what we know is that one wallet that's associated with Satoshi has a little over 1 million Bitcoin.
So if those wallets started moving to other wallets, the only way that they could get anonymous is send it to Tornado Cash. But if they were to start moving money and start selling it, everybody would know that they would sell it. And I think what you're worried about is some sort of rug. Even if Satoshi sold all of his Bitcoin, there's people who want that Bitcoin. Fine, that's okay. Though people will buy it and Bitcoin will recover. Yeah, it'll go down temporarily while he rugs, but other people will pick it back up.
I think the psychological side of that would have an effect on Bitcoin itself. I really do.
I don't think there's enough to say that that it would end Bitcoin.
No, I didn't say it would end it. I'm just saying it would inhibit it tremendously. Jameson Lopp is probably one of the best Bitcoin experts out there. And he's put out a fantastic, if you go to his website, he's put out a fantastic, I mean, this thing is like 10 pages long. He walks through how Satoshi actually pulled his own mining back. He restricted himself from mining as much Bitcoin as he could have to try and make sure that he wasn't the top holder of Bitcoin. He couldn't help it. He kept pulling himself back further and further, but he kept still making more.
If you look at how Satoshi talked, his whole point, if I recall, in the beginning, was to get Bitcoin distributed to other people because he wanted the money to be usable by everybody. It makes a lot of sense that he would pull it back. Now, did he think that one Bitcoin would be worth $66,000? I don't think so. I think that he was just thinking that the money needs to get out there and be used. I don't think that he was like, okay, I got enough to live on for the rest of my life.
All right.
Because Bitcoin could work just fine if it was worth, $500 a Bitcoin. It's still money and it can still be divided up. But the good news is the more people use it, and this would be a fucking pipe dream of his. If everybody in the world could get to use this, if everybody in the world used Bitcoin, it'd be worth several $1 million for a single Bitcoin. I think what he was worried about, which is in network terms called address space, he just wanted to make sure he had enough integer positions to be able to handle everybody in the world dividing up Bitcoin, or enough people dividing up Bitcoin to use it. And I really think that he thought that Bitcoin wasn't going to be around, that another coin, a better coin, was going to fork off of it and replace it. And the very fact that people are still going after Bitcoin, even though it's not the best technology out there, just shows that people really glom on to certain things that they like. Oh, I like the name. I like that it was the original and all that stuff.
Well, there's the story. I won't resurrect it on this cast because we're running so long, but I do think
actually.
I think I might have had a chat conversation with Satoshi, and I've relayed that to you both publicly and privately. And back in the early days, because this conversation took place in the probably before 2010. And I didn't know money then. I didn't understand how money worked until you showed me the Zeitgeist thing and totally flipped me on my head about how everything worked. And my response during that Bitcoin conversation was, the government will never allow another currency to replace the dollar. That's how stupid I was. I had no idea what Bitcoin was back then, nor did I even take it to that next level to find out what it was. Because if I did, I would have bought every single Bitcoin I could have gotten my hands on, and I would be a trillionaire by now.
Everybody would have. This is hindsight is 2020. Nobody, when Bitcoin they first started making Bitcoin, they were hoping to just get electronic money that they could use. Period. They just wanted money. They weren't thinking that they were going to be rock star rich and famous. They were just thinking, hey, if this catches on, that's a great side effect. Okay, the Bitcoin we have will probably be worth something more, but really, they didn't think it was going to would catch on that much, in my opinion.
I do think it was kind of a pipe dream at first, but then when it did start to catch on, things changed very rapidly. Those cypherpunks at the beginning with eCash and everything else, they really pushed the envelope, and they were dead serious about it, and they thought it was going to be a big thing. It was supposed to be money by email. That's really what it was all about. And it turned into what Bitcoin is today.
So these people were making things or studying like what PGP was. It stands for pretty good privacy, by the way, for people who are curious. Mm-hmm. But PGP encryption was a way for me and you to encrypt things. And if you could encrypt certain things, certain transactions, you could then send money via email and then update some sort of ledger. I think it's great that they came up with the Bitcoin concept, but I'll tell you, when I first heard of it, the first thing I thought of was, that's illegal. That's illegal because the U.S. government does not allow you to mint to use anything else as money. And so when I first heard of it, I just wanted to stay the heck away from it. And now because there's a guy who made something called the Liberty Dollar, where he tried to make an alternate.
I remember that.
Well, that's against the law to make an alternate U.S. currency. Well, the difference with Bitcoin is Bitcoin doesn't say it's U.S. currency. It just says, hey, it's a thing and you can use it like money. And so me not knowing enough about money, I was just like, okay, well, this is just like the Liberty Dollar. And those people, whoever has one, is just going to get arrested. And if you ever try to sell this dollar, because if you got a Liberty coin right now and tried to sell it on or use it as cash or sell it on eBay, I think you get in trouble. So the U.S. government tracked down that guy and stopped him from printing that stuff. And I think they either put him in jail or threatened it. So I thought the same thing about Bitcoin. And I had literally thought, okay, if I buy some Bitcoin and then I sell that Bitcoin to somebody else, I'm going to get thrown in jail. I didn't really get back into it until 2017 when it was obvious that nobody was getting thrown in jail for it. Now, yeah, they thought it didn't have as much of a bad reputation as it has now because politicians are really going after it. But at that time, people were just ignoring it. And also I had heard in 2017, like in 2014, the U.S. government called Bitcoin a property, called it property and not money. Had I known that in 2014, I would have been like, okay, I'm going to buy Bitcoin because it's property now.
How did you get into Bitcoin first time?
So I was at work one day, and is after I worked with Dixie here. Actually, I worked with Dixie before I heard about it, and then I worked with him afterward. So I was at a job, and it was like my first few days on the job, and this QA guy kept going over to this other QA guy and talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, Bitcoin this. And he did it for like a week or two. And it just kind of settled into my consciousness. And finally, I was like, what are you talking about? Because I knew something about Bitcoin from 2011. I had first heard about it from a train conductor when I was taking the train to work every day. And he asked me what I thought of it back then. And I was just like, it's a fad. People are going to get in trouble. You can't mint dollars. So anyway, so this guy's talking in 2017 about Bitcoin. And now I hear Coinbase has popped up and he's talking. And I asked him about it. He's like, oh, you can get Bitcoin free online through these little faucets. And,
right,
it's been declared a commodity, or not a commodity, just property. So I went over to him and started asking him. Nobody came to me propositioning me about Bitcoin. I heard him talking about it, and I came to him and asked him about it. And so he's going onto all these sites and collecting free Bitcoin from these faucets. Then I heard about Coinbase, and I was like, why don't you just buy it?
right.
Because also I had known about Mt. Gox at the time too, and that Mt. Gox was in another country. It wasn't in the United States. And so you couldn't just get on Mt. Gox. You had to I think I looked it up at the time, and you had to wire money to it. And it was something I'd never done before. And it just seemed shady. But with Coinbase,
how did it seem shady? It was based on Magic the Gathering, you dumbass.
You need to listen. Are you wanting to know the answer to this question? So when I heard about Coinbase, I heard that you can make, just connect your bank account to it.
Right.
And so I went to my bank. I made a separate bank account that was not associated with my bank account because I figured it could be shady. And then I connected my bank account to Coinbase, and then I started sending money, and I've been buying it ever since.
How much was the price the first time you saw Bitcoin? How much was the price for Bitcoin?
Like 3,000. It was in
Wow.
September of 2017. So it was just starting to go up. And so I only bought like $250 of it, but Bitcoin started going way, 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 way up at that time. So I didn't really make a lot on that. And I also quickly started looking at other coins and determined at that time that XRP was the one that I approved of more and went after that one. So I bought most of my XRP back then when it was like 20 cents. Anyway, so by the way, about Mt. Gox, it started as a Magic the Gathering card trading thing, but it quickly turned into a crypto exchange. And then the whole Magic the Gathering stuff just kind of got left behind. Yes, I knew I knew what that was, but I didn't trade magic cards online back then.
No, but I figured with you being so into that, how could you avoid Mount Gox knowing that that's where it came from?
Again,
MTG, Mount
you'd have to be
Gox,
trading-
MTG.
Just because people are trading magic cards online doesn't mean that they're legit. Okay. So I didn't do a lot of that stuff in 2011. Okay. When I first heard about Mount Gox and Bitcoin, I remember. So my friend who was a train conductor, he was telling me, after a while, he's like, okay, so I wound up buying some Bitcoin. I'm like, well, how much is it anyway? He's like, oh, it's $50. I'm like, well, how much you get? And he's like, I got about 6 or 7. And I'm like, what are you going to do with it? He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, you just lost $250 there, dude. And now my 2 cents is he probably didn't hold the Bitcoin for very long. I bet it went up to like $1,000 or $10 or $3,000. And he's like, oh my God.
Well, probably a lot of people back then, when they had a bunch of Bitcoins and they didn't know what was coming behind this. It's just people just threw it away or got lost in somewhere whatever they had to store it. So
the thing that gets me when people start talking about Satoshi's accounts is he was mining this stuff at first, okay? And people don't seem to think that he could have lost his private keys, just intentionally threw them away because he didn't care at the time, or some other way of not being able to control those keys anymore. Everybody seems to think that, oh my God, Satoshi's so rich, he would have kept onto those keys, held onto those keys. Probably not. If he was intentionally trying not to mine to get the coin out there, in my opinion, he probably just threw away the keys to some of his wallets. I don't know how many wallets he has, but he probably threw away the keys or lost them, or his computer or his laptop locked up. Because back then, when you had Bitcoin, I think you had to have like a miner yourself. You had to have the software on your machine, and then you couldn't just like do what we did and have the private keys. That was something else. I did look it up a little bit in 2011, and it was such a pain. You had to like download the entire Bitcoin blockchain and all this stuff to get a wallet. And it was Greek to me. I didn't understand. I'm like, so I have to download all the stuff on my computer, and then I'm going to get these ones and zeros on my computer that I can hand to somebody else who has that same computer setup. I didn't have the understanding to know that eventually this could somehow be, squeezed into some sort of easy thing like MetaMask that we have right now. I didn't get it at all.
Right.
So
what about you, Titan? When was the first time you saw Bitcoin?
That guy right over there. We would talk. Yeah, we would talk like every 2 or 3 years. We'd have a phone conversation and catch up and all this stuff.
Let me stard my part, and then you could do your part. So my part was I had introduced him to a YouTube YouTube show called Zeitgeist, and
this was in 2008.
2008, and it was about, this is how I wound up. I tried to talk to him over the years after we got out of the military. And so I wound up getting his attention with showing him Zeitgeist because I thought it was really good. And so then we kind of started talking. Well, after a while in 2017, I started getting into crypto. And it was only after I started making some money with crypto, I started mentioning it to him. And he's just like, yeah, whatever. And this was from 2017 till 2020. I just mention it to him every once in a while. He's like, he's trying to act all like, I'm like, he's all discriminating and stuff. Like, who knows what this stuff is? This sounds kooky, or this sounds like, and there's a lot like I was at first, until I bought Gala. And Gala was a speculative buy. I had done my research, and I was like, oh, this could become something. And so I bought a bunch, and I kind of ran it by him because I knew he did some financial analysis, and he's like, that it sounds like a scam.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I don't care if it's a scam. The whole point is, and I went over the whole crypto thing with him many times. The whole point is it can gain value, and this one might take off, and you could use it to invest in. You could move it over to other things. So it wasn't until Gala went through the roof. It jumped from like 0.00002 to 0.0018. And I made a bunch of money. And I was like, oh my God. And I called him up and I'm like, this is what you can do with crypto. So suck it, dude. And he goes, okay. I'm getting a wallet right now.
God, you are so wrong.
That's what it was.
So he
now he hates Gala with
passion.
passion.
Listen. So we had one of our calls and we had talked a couple of times.
Right.
And I remember this vividly. I'm in my garage. All right. And I'm talking to him and he's blathering on about crypto. And I'm like, what's it going to take to shut you up? And he's like, get an account, get some crypto. I'm like, fine. So I said, listen, I'll go and I'll research these exchanges and I'll get back to you. So we talk like a week later. I said, all right, I picked Gemini. I looked at all these exchanges. I'm picking Gemini. And he walked me through getting an account and buying my first Bitcoin and all this other stuff, right? And so
$50 a Bitcoin, yeah.
Yeah, I bought some Bitcoin and he's like, all right, now I need to show you how to use this thing. And that motherfucker, I send him Bitcoin because he shows me how to do it. And he sends me back less Bitcoin than I sent him. And he's like, well, it just happens. That's the value. You know, you sent me $50. I sent you $50. I'm like, yeah, but I got less Bitcoin.
It's called a fee. Minor fee.
So
Right.
So we go through that. So I had gotten into it. And then we talked for hours every day after that. And he got me into VET and everything else after that. And I got hooked. That's when I got hooked. I'm like, oh shit, this is going somewhere. I understand this shit now, so I'm interested. And then that led into the Gala stuff. And he calls me up in a panic one night. And I'm outside, I'm drunk. It's like 10 o'clock at night for me. And he's like, I just bought nodes. You need to buy nodes. And I'm like, what? What the fuck is a node? So he walks me through all this shit about nodes. And I panicked him. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you buying? I'm like, this is stupid. I'm like, and he's like, well, then there's this thing about being an accredited investor, and I don't know what that is. And I'm like, all right, here's what it is. And he calls Brink on the phone. And he's like,
I texted him
or whatever. And he's like, I'm not an accredited investor. And Brink's like, oh yeah, that was a mistake. You know, we didn't know what we were doing. So Faz refunds his fucking node because now he's panicked, right? 2 days later, Brink calls him back up and says, you know, hey, you know, we had this all wrong. Here's what it really is. So Faz buys his nodes back and buys more. And I'm still, and Faz is like, dude, you got to buy these nodes. You got to buy whatever you can gather. Just get as much money as you can, buy these nodes. And I'm like, I don't know. So I finally, we go for a couple months like this. And he shows me, we're on Discord and he shows me a screenshot and there's like 85 bajillion tokens in his wallet. He's like, this is what the nodes do. Look at this. This is insane. And I'm like, all right, I will save for a node. And so I start throwing money in and I'm collecting tokens.
Right.
And then we had like a little pump. We had this pump.
I remember that one. Yeah.
And it eclipsed what I had in my wallet, eclipsed what a node costs. And I went, oh shit, I can get a node now. So I went in real quick. I hung up on Faz. I went over and I bought a node. And I get this node and I bought Gala Gold and the node and I bought all this other floofy bullshit they were selling at the time. And I get this thing and Faz is over here with 73 bajillion tokens in his wallet. And my little PP1 node over here is kicking out like 83 tokens a day. And I'm like, this is horse shit. And he's like, give it time. Just relax. I had the same thing when I started. Just give it time. So I give it time, and we all did well, and here we are today.
All right. So he remembers certain things, and I remember other things. He is really not interested until he saw that I got a lot of money because I bought a lot of Gala on BitTrue.
That's how it normally happens when you have a friend and you have a friend, a real friend.
Well, that's the thing is I didn't find out. I didn't have a friend that told me about it. I just heard it being talked about, and since I've been exposed to it before, if anything, the friend was the train conductor back in 2011, which I really should have listened. But I don't know. I think I just wasn't mentally there, and I have to hear about something many times to realize it's a good idea.
Right.
Speaking of that, I'm going to completely change the subject because I want to show something to people many times so that they might want to get it. Do you see this screen screen thing I've done here?
Which one?
This right here. And I'm not going to speak for Zorro here, but Zorro has offered to help with these too. So we have this kind of lame premium program right now where you pay like $2 a month or boost the FazRadio Discord. I mean, you boost the Discord, that makes it so we can have our own URL. Yay. But Zorro has been really interested in helping us market. And we're talking about having some real premium things like a shirt like this for one. And so I made the logo. And so we have like a FazRadio backstage shirt. So if you were to get premium, and we don't know what it's going to be priced yet, but you get a shirt like this at least, or maybe a coffee mug or something. I don't know. Maybe people could choose. I think this looks awesome myself because I made it. But
that does. You know what? I want that one, and I want the special one that we're not releasing yet, but that you showed us in the backstage. That one is the one I'll be getting.
Which one is that?
The Christmas one. I will be buying multiple Christmas ones.
So I've also made versions of the logo that like work with holidays, certain holidays. I want to show the Halloween one. Okay, let me get the Halloween one out. Because that one's coming up soon.
The Halloween one. That's going to be a pretty cool design because it's actually a very special moment because you're just going to have a one time, I believe so, right, for Halloween, and that's it, pretty much.
Well, yeah.
Yep. Right.
It'll only a small window for Halloween.
Right.
Okay. So let me. Should I have it on a shirt? Hold on. I don't know how this should be, if it should be on a bumper sticker. Maybe somebody could tell me. Let me find the right screen. This is image PNG. Is it this one? There we go. So this is our Halloween.
I'm glad you didn't do that either, Shanrat. I am definitely glad you didn't do that.
Why?
Buy at what price?
His friend bought about the same time as Titan. He bought two and tried to convince me, but they were like 100,000 by that time, so it didn't make sense.
So I actually stopped buying when it had gotten down really low, and I thought I was being really cool because the first one I bought and then returned was I paid like $1,500 or $1,300, and then after Pitbender called me back and told me it was, they're not securities or whatever, or they didn't see it as a security. He had a certain wording. It went down in price because they were selling them in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin went down. And so I think I paid $800 for my first one. And then I wound up getting two more at sale prices. By the time Titan bought his for about like 7,000, I was done. I was like, no way.
No, mine was, I put it in the chat. Mine was 4,500. And I spent about $1,500 on tokens to get, I think it was like 350,000 tokens I had at that point. And I'd spent about $1,500 on it, and the price jumped. And so those tokens were worth enough to get a node at that point at like 4,500. So I called Faz. I'm like, how do I buy a node? And he's like, oh, here, go here, go here, go here. and I bought the node at like 4,500, and I bought gold, and I bought
4,500. That's right, 4,500.
yeah, and there was like 2 other things that I bought. And Faz, as much shit as I give this guy, he sent my kids. He had like 1 billion of those trucks for Townstar. What the hell are those called?
Yeah, those things. Yeah.
The delivery guy.
Yeah, no, it was the faster truck, so you could get out of Townstar faster.
Yeah, faster truck.
Yeah, I forget what they called them. Yeah, but he sent my kids. He's like, "Oh, I got a whole bunch of these," and my kids were playing Townstar. My middle kid made a shitload in crypto. He made thousands of dollars in crypto. He played Townstar. He was on what do you call it? Not Shapeshift. The other token platform that just Express Depot. That was the name of it.
Depot. Yeah.
Yeah, he sent my kids to the Express Depot, but he would trade all the time on one of these platforms, and he got an airdrop that was worth like $7,000 because he was a trading maniac, and he was like 7 or 8 at the time, and he was just a genius at this.
Right.
And he got this airdrop, and he comes to me with his phone, and he's like, "Dad, somebody sent me all these tokens." And I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And I look it up, and I'm like, "Holy shit, dude, that's like $7,000." And he's like, "Get out." I'm like, "No, really?" And of course, he wanted to spend it all on candy and gum. And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "You can take some out, but you're going to keep some of it."
Right.
And so he pulled a bunch out. He bought himself a gaming PC and an iPhone and still had tons of tokens left. And so those early days of crypto, man, that was wild.
My
that
son
was
actually
wild.
My son played Townstar for like 3 months or something like that, and wound up making like several $1,000s. And then at a certain point, I think it got when it got up to Gala or Town got up to 10 cents. He cashed it all in and bought himself like a top of the line Alienware computer, and he still has it to this day. It's just like 2 or 3 years ago. So that was a good purchase for him, and I'm rather happy. Anyway, let me get back to this logo here. So I want to make these for various holidays. I did this with zip bugs for like a couple of years, and I fell off the wagon this last year, but I like to make this stuff. And so I wanted to make one, but I want to have different ones every year. So now I put the date on it as well. So this is going to be our Halloween logo.
Right. That's pretty cool. That one.
And
I like
that.
the mic to be the microphone to be the.
It's still a microphone. It's just flipped.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the whole point is Halloween isn't going to last very long. It's just going to be around. I'll change our logos for certain logos. We have like 27 different social media, so I'll change certain logos to the Halloween one.
Probably will be
Like
some merch that's gonna be just a special edition, and it's gonna be just one time. Then probably people will not get it again. It's
So
just gonna be a cool thing.
So this is the question here: is what kind of merch should this be on? Should this just be a bumper sticker? Should it be a T-shirt, coffee mug? I mean, actually, coffee mug would be kind of nice. But yeah, I think I want to do that. I like a coffee mug for me. But anyway, so this is every year. It was going to be something different.
I like that.
You already made it your background. Look at that. You look behind Mr. Zorro there. Coffee is great.
Fast and too fast.
You can have your pumpkin spice coffee with the
Ew.
Ew.
God, pumpkin is horrible.
Well, okay, I got to show you guys. I showed you guys earlier, didn't I? Before the show, I found this pumpkin pie hummus, which tastes like pumpkin pie. Actually, got protein.
I got some protein for you.
He's promoting.
Okay, yeah, TMI, dude.
Meat, beef, steak, ribeyes, lots of them.
Anyway, that the logo we have in the upper right-hand corner, I think will change for about a week or something. It'll be the Halloween season, but then we'll have one for Christmas.
The Christmas ones are fire, guys. I'm telling you what, I'm going to buy like 30 of those shirts because they are epic. And I want to tell you a story about how Faz fucked me over. So the peer pressure that he provided last week on the show to get me to finally buy my Faz merch, I'm running through it and I buy the Faz hoodie that I bought last week on the show, and it shows up and it gets here and I open up the package and I pull it out and I'm like, what the fuck am I looking at? Because he was in such a hurry to get me to buy that thing, I didn't check the size. So it was a medium. And this thing only fits my middle kid. So I throw it to him and I'm like, here you go. You got a FazRadio sweatshirt now. I couldn't even wear that thing. I couldn't get it over my head. This thing was so small. So I've got to go back. Now I've got to go get more FazRadio gear so that I can be cool like Zorro over there and throw up my FazRadio gear. I'm happy to test the product, but that hoodie was expensive, man. That was like $35.
Well, your son's going to really enjoy that hoodie.
He will, and he'll wear it. He loves FazRadio, and he'll probably make an appearance at some point. He's listened to it. He supports it. He thinks what we do is awesome. I love that they're involved in this, and they all my kids, even my 11-year-old daughter, when she was 8, she got her first crypto wallet.
Oh, wow.
And she has several $100s worth of crypto in there today.
Nice.
She doesn't know how to trade it, so she just, whatever we sent her, she kept. And unfortunately, some of those tokens aren't worth very much. But they do very well with it. And I'm hoping, I told my middle, who's the most financially responsible out of all of them, I said, listen, I said, you can trade whatever you want to trade, but don't ever sell that Bitcoin I gave you. Just keep it. Just hold it. And
actually something
when you're 40 years old, you're going to appreciate it.
So something I did with my kids back when Bitcoin was about $3,000. I was saving some money in their bank accounts. I had bank accounts. Well, my bank account, I had separate accounts for them. And every once in a while, like once a week, I just have money going in there. And I wound up buying like 0.11 Bitcoin at the time when it was like $3,500, which is only $350 at the time. But that's a lot more now. What's 0.1 of 60,000? I mean, so I think Bitcoin can go up to 1 million at least. And so if they hold on to that 0.11 Bitcoin for a while, that's going to be something.
That's good.
So they have their own wallets. In fact, what I did is I made them a Ledger Nano wallet, and then put the Bitcoin in there, and then I reprogrammed the Ledger Nano wallet. So all they have is a private key now. And so private keys with their stuff, and they could program a Ledger Nano or whatever. In fact, any device like a Trezor, you could use the same keywords for.
Right.
And so eventually you could program one of those things, connect it up, and then pull it out. So I think Bitcoin's a good investment for kids, personally.
Yeah.
If Bitcoin becomes $1 million, that 0.1 Bitcoin will be what, $100,000?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
That'll pay for a single year of education in the future, right?
No, not in the future. It won't. Today it might, but not in the future.
Probably
the way they're debasing these dollars, hell no.
He will.
Well,
Bitcoin, they will have
a
good possibility to do something with it.
So. That's why Bitcoin's going to be worth $1 million, is because we're debasing our own money.
Oh my God, Think Tank! If that was true, we'd all be bazillionaires.
Well,
no doubt.
Okay, so a lot of things happen again and again. So NFTs, gaming NFTs had an introduction. People got really into it. They started buying a whole bunch. Gaming NFTs are going to come back. Okay, they're going to probably be different games. They're probably going to be done slightly different. Just like CryptoPunks came out, a long time ago, and people were like, yeah, whatever. And then, then Bored Apes came out, and that made it a big thing. Gaming
Right.
NFTs will come back, in my opinion. Somebody's going to do it right, and then it's going to be a real thing that everybody's going to want and use. Crypto is going to have to take off, in my opinion.
I think your wisdom from about 2 years ago is going to pay off. And what you said, and I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I appreciate it now, is that people who do these things don't understand what they're doing yet. And when they get to that point where they understand the blockchain and its importance and what it can provide, I think it will become a huge, huge thing. And I think governments and everybody else will embrace it. But right now, all it is a bunch of money grabbers out there trying to make $1 million for themselves. And once that goes away, and it's going to take years to get that to go away. Once it goes away, though, I think there's a huge potential for that. Some of the projects, some of the people we just interviewed, as a matter of fact, have really good ideas for using blockchain. And when you see the cast that we're about to release coming up late this weekend, early next week, Faz did a solid for us all here at FazRadio. He took the bullet and interviewed Metaflora, which is a fantastic project that's coming out that is going to be using the blockchain to archive information about cannabis, which, as we know, gets suppressed everywhere because people are stuffy and everything else. It was too late for Zorro and I because of the time difference of the creators. So Faz did that one solo. But the ideas of how to use the blockchain and how to implement things on the blockchain, those are going to be the ones that you're going to want to watch for in the future. The meme coins, everything else, it's great right now. We can make a profit on it and stuff our wallets and make some money and be happy. But the things that will vet themselves out over time, over the next 10 years, and build a solid infrastructure today that can carry on into the future, that's going to be valuable. That's going to be really, 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 really valuable.
Well, what's stopping crypto right now, in my opinion, is widespread governmental acceptance. Now, the internet did really well in the 90s once governments started accepting it. And then once governments accept it, then they start building on it. So what's happening with Bitcoin is everybody else, the grassroots have accepted it. The grassroots are building on it. When the government does get around to accepting it, and they will, because it's already an election thing right now. Both candidates in the United States are talking about crypto now, when that was never the case. Once the government does accept it, that all the stuff that people have started building is a lot of groundwork. All these L2s and all these other wacko coins that are right now, one of those are going to just totally it's going to be exactly what some company or some big entity needs. And then crypto is just going to go up and up and up and up and up. Now, I don't know if the current coins are going to be good or not, but if you had an old coin and you might get an airdrop of a new coin, what if, so Metaflora is, they work with the Gala chain, with Gala chain. Will Gala chain be around? Well, what if Gala chain was around for a while, Metaflora started doing well, and then Gala chain just tanked. Metaflora would go, oh, well, they even told me in the interview they're working with Ethereum as well. But they would just go on another blockchain and do the same thing again. So it doesn't matter what you're building on right now. Whatever does take off, if somebody's successful doing somewhere, they're going to move over to the next thing. And it could be Bitcoin itself. They're making NFTs, and if the ordinals and stuff, they're making NFTs. What if Bitcoin became where all the NFTs were? People start bridging all their NFTs over. And if that NFT is like, from 10 years ago, I personally think you have a history there. It's going to keep the history, and it's going to keep its value. So I am all about, even if I don't like the chain, I want to know and talk to people who build on that chain, because they're not going to go away if the chain goes away.
Right.
So here's classic Titan, right? Throwing the monkey wrench into the gears. Here's my problem with projects who launch on blockchain today. Let's take Metaflora for an example. They're selling nodes, and they're selling two types of nodes. They're selling connoisseur nodes, and they're selling industry nodes.
You're starting to reveal things that they should be.
That's okay. That's okay. The diehards who have lasted 2 hours and 6 minutes deserve to hear this.
It's increased, actually.
There's two types of nodes. There's connoisseur nodes and there's industry nodes. Okay. And I've said this before on this cast multiple times, and I've upended the apple cart when I say it, but I'm going to say it again. There's DePIN nodes out there right now who can run workloads that can handle databases for exactly what they're trying to do.
Sir, how do you know that they're not using DePIN? You should really watch and wait before.
Because you're cutting me off before I finish.
Right.
So, why did these projects have to launch new nodes when they can simply put a workload on existing node platforms that can handle that traffic?
Seriously?
And the reason is because they want to raise money. And that bothers me.
Okay, why do you need a separate file system on your computer when Amazon has a file system that you can use? Why do you need your own separate music collection if YouTube has all the music you ever, or Spotify has all the music you ever want to listen to?
You're conflating. You're putting things together that don't make sense. There are other options for them to put that database into without having to release their own nodes for it.
So nodes have a purpose. My observation of having nodes is you get to create an economy that you control.
You can do that on other platforms. You don't have to launch your own node for that.
Okay. So you realize that some platforms like Gala chain are designed to work with nodes and enable you to make nodes, right? So getting back to the purpose of having a node, if you want to create your own economy, this same argument can be used with coins. Why do you need to use another coin, a coin of your own?
Exactly.
Well, why use Store B's coupon when you could just use Store A's coupon? See where this is going? This is about something that you're creating that you can control the distribution of.
You can do that using any token out there and any node system out there. You don't have to create your own.
Can you go to arcade number 2 by using arcade number 1's tokens? No.
No, you can't, because the creator of Arcade 2 says no.
Exactly. There you go. That's your answer. And the reason is because that's how the arcade makes money, is they control the exchange rate of that token. And so it might be 5 tokens for $1 at Arcade 1 and 6 tokens for $1 at Arcade
Right.
2. Yeah.
You just restated my purpose. To make money.
Yeah. And it might be that Arcade 2 has a bigger exchange rate because they have those big-ass Dance Dance Revolution games that people like to play now. And they need the extra money. You're going there for a reason.
Well, you can still support the platform by buying their token. You don't need to buy a node to do it.
It's not going to go away. It's gonna keep getting more and more. Nodes are going to turn into something even more heinous that you will hate.
Why didn't any platform? I'm not just talking. I don't want to pick on Metaflora here because I like their concept. I like their idea and what they're doing. So let's put them off the table for a moment. Why doesn't any platform, and I've brought this up many times before, just use Bitcoin as their token? Why not? They can make money on Bitcoin. If people like what they're doing, they'll pay Bitcoin in order to do it. Why do they have to have their own token?
So you realize that tokens tokenize, they encapsulate different concepts. So it's not just a money grab. Any business you go to is a money grab. If you're going to go to a Chinese restaurant or an Indian restaurant or McDonald's, they're all money grabs. Okay,
and they all take U.S. dollars.
What is
they use the same currency?
But they all have coupons too.
What is the first reason for a person to buy a node?
So, like I said, if you have a business and you want to have a node ecosystem, you are providing them values by letting them in on making money the way they do. Well, if you run this node, then you can produce some value that you could sell for more. Now, I really don't want to go into what Metaflora does because it's not anything like.
We're off Metaflora. Get off Metaflora.
Okay.
We're not going to fund them.
Let me finish. So Metaflora does something different with their nodes than Gala does, than Ethereum does, than other people do, and it's rather cool. So you're using your own coin so that you can tokenize your own type of value that you're selling. Okay.
You can do that with a workload. You don't need a separate node to run that workload.
Yeah, there's so many things that we do separately in the world today that's not going to matter. People are still going to do it. They want to control their own ecosystem. Period.
They can with a workload. They don't need a node to do it.
Yeah, and store A and store B and store C, they could just buy generic coupons and just use generic coupons. But for some reason, they don't. They have their own sale plans. They have their own discount programs. They have their own loyalty programs. That's why.
Yes, that can be done with a workload. It doesn't need a separate node.
They could, but they're not going to do that.
Because why?
Because people need to make money.
There you go.
Your grocery store makes money.
You've proven my point. You've proven my point. It's about the money.
We're arguing the same thing.
Well, Titan, business have to make money.
Businesses
have to make
money, and you're making it sound bad.
If their idea is good, if they're good, they can do it with a workload. They don't have to sell a node to do it.
That's nice that you feel that way. People are just going to do it anyway because they want to make money the way they want to make money. It doesn't matter. It's why don't we all just put all our shit in one big giant spreadsheet when we always have separate spreadsheets and separate pages and because we want to organize our shit in our own way.
What does SHX token do? What is the purpose behind SHX?
Well, SHX you're talking about the stronghold token. They want to do with commodities what XRP is doing with remittances, which is not a bad idea.
Cross-chain, right? They want to be able to harness cross-chain pieces and bring them together into one value. So you have these companies.
I don't think me or you are really the best at telling other people everything about SHX.
Well, my point to this is that you're going to have these companies, there's quite a few of them out there, who are trying to work with the cross-bridging and the cross-multiplication of all of these different token platforms and chains and everything else, trying to get interchain operability. Even Gala chain is doing that, right? They're trying to make this. They introduced Flare before, which is no longer a thing with them apparently, but they tried to bridge everything together into one chain because all of these projects want to launch all their own things, which is all fine and good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I want to make that very clear. It's not a bad thing, but I'm saying they don't have to do that. They could launch, and if their idea and their project is good enough, they can create a workload to work on other DePIN systems to gain profit and make money and get their databases together and everything else.
It certainly could.
The problem is that there's too many of these, and people are growing very weary.
How many companies,
different chains?
How many companies are there in the world? There's hundreds of thousands of companies in the world. Why don't they just all get together and run under a single company? You could do it that way. It's because people want to do things their own way, and it's not a bad thing. I like what Think Tank here is saying. He's saying if you're buying a node, you're agreeing to a contract to provide a service usually. And so what I said earlier, which is they're inviting you to make money with them because they want to delegate some of the work to you. Now, the work could be as simple as just creating their token, or the work can be something more than that. That's actually why I got into Holochain, is because they want to tokenize CPU cycles. When you're running the node on whatever node machine that you're running, or on your own machine, people are buying these CPU cycles off of you, and those can be used for running programs. Gala nodes have a different thing, and these Metaflora nodes have something different. They're all a service that you're providing.
So why couldn't Metaflora run on Holochain?
They don't want to. But by the way, Holochain's not done, and I'm rather disappointed with them. But why couldn't they just run on another completed node?
Why couldn't they run on Deep Network?
Maybe they didn't. Maybe Deep Network wasn't out at that time, because Metaflora has been doing this for a couple of years now, at least. So
no, they're just launching. They're launching nodes today.
They're launching after they've worked on it for several years. Okay, deep nodes weren't around several years ago. You want to work with what's out there, not what isn't out there.
All right.
So that's it. You're not going to get away from the fact that people need to make money, and you're trying to make it sound
they still can't. No,
you're trying to make it sound like you're going to be scammed if you do it any other way.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Then what's the problem?
What I'm saying is that all these separate ecosystems and the walled gardens that they're projecting is causing the problems. If you had all of these things running in congruency together, that would make it more attractive, I think, to people. Whereas, like, for instance,
well, wait a minute.
And again, I'm not trying.
This is like saying at one time we had HBO as a cable channel, and now we have 55 million streaming services. You have Amazon, you have NBC, you have ABC, you have all this. Everybody has their own movie channel now, and it costs so much extra money. Why can't they just all get together and do HBO again? Because they don't want HBO in charge. And Think Tank here is saying nodes are cheaper than paying for AWS.
Let me give you something that'll make you take your left hand under the table. Okay, I'm going to use a Faz example.
My left
and
hand?
You use your left hand, by the way, because it makes it feel like somebody else is doing it.
Okay.
But anyway, let's go with Gala chain. I'm going to talk about Gala chain. How about that, Faz?
I'll be back later.
So Gala chain splits itself off into individual channels for each project that comes aboard. So if ZipBugs comes aboard, they have their own separate channel. If Metaflora comes on, they have their own separate channel. If Eduardo brings his morphs to Gala chain. It has its own separate channel. They're already separated under one chain. Just like that. That's what I'm hoping for. But yet, all these other projects out here go on all these other channels and all these other chains with their own nodes and their own ecosystems, and everything's separate. People don't have time for that. If you want to bring it in, and this is where, and I'm gonna unintentionally plug it, but this is where the deep network makes sense, because they have an open source type of platform, just like Gala chain does. And I'm not pushing either one or the other. But Gala chain has separate channels for everybody. So does DeepN. So does Deep Network. Why not, instead of opening nodes and different chains and everything else, you just come under one of those umbrellas that you like, whether it's Deep Network or Gala chain or Cosmos or Nervous or any of the other networks that are out there that have these separate chains. Why do you have to have your own node network? It makes no sense to me. Just drop into one of those, get your channel, make your money, be happy.
Because you can get other people to run the services for you.
That's why I'm advocating for this.
So
We're
it doesn't
agreeing.
matter. So it doesn't, okay, it might be, and I'm totally fine with this because I love the idea of competition, okay? So if you can get people on Gala chain to run your nodes for you, run services for you, great. It might be that you want to use Polkadot instead, and use their parachains, or use just anybody other's nodes because they work better with your business model. Now, the thing about Gala chain is Gala is in the middle of this process, and there's this approval step that they have, which I really don't like, which would cause me to not want to use Gala nodes. However,
I thought Eric said he was going to take that away for you, Faz.
No, that was something different. Anyway, so it might be that I want to use another chain, and it might be that that other chain doesn't have enough features or the right features for me. So I'm going to use what they're doing. Now, Gala chain, if I recall correctly, was invented to have like to be able to do fast streaming and stuff like that. So other chains apparently don't do this. Okay, that's what they focused on. They provide that functionality. If I can't get it anywhere, then I'm going to have to use Gala chain. But different node ecosystems are going to concentrate on different things. So what's the problem?
There is no problem. I'm asking questions, Faz. I'm saying, why do they have to do their own thing when they can get it somewhere else?
Can't do them all. One chain cannot enable all the features that these nodes would use.
Yes, they can.
But they aren't. That's the thing.
They are.
No.
You can go whether you go to Cosmos, Ethereum, Arbitrum, Base, or even Gala chain. You can get the same things on all of those chains.
Can Gala chain allow you to delegate your node to someone and they run it for you? Hands off?
I don't know.
Not. Now, my understanding is that maybe Nerd Node or Deep Network could do that, but I'm not exactly sure. So again, each node ecosystem is going to have different features. And yeah, if you have a company that can keep it all and maintain it all and do it all, great, but there's not that company yet.
But you can still use Bitcoin as your token. Why do you have to create your own token?
The whole purpose of the name token is to tokenize something. What if you want to tokenize a game piece?
You can do that. There's
now
ordinals.
you can't. with ordinals now, but up until last year, you
Right.
couldn't do that.
So
Well,
up
other
until
tokens have
last
been
year,
around a
so
lot
every
longer.
project
Other tokens
from last
been
year on
around
could
for a
use
lot longer.
Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin ordinals actually isn't even that good. Other tokens have been around for longer and they have more features. So
You don't need your own token.
So do you think everybody should stop working with these other tokens and go with Bitcoin ordinals? They don't want to. They've been working on other tokens for a lot longer than Bitcoin ordinals have been around.
I'm talking about tokens that launch now. Tokens that launch now don't need to launch their own token. They can go on any other token.
They could, but they're not gonna. They'll
Why?
want to make their own. They'll want to make
They
their
want to
own.
make their own, but why?
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Why?
Because they have control of the ecosystem.
They can have control of the ecosystem and take Bitcoin as their payment token.
Not the same way. Not the same way
Why?
if you issue the coins yourself. Why? Because you can issue the coins yourself. You can issue the tokens yourself. You can assign
you can issue
value in ways that
Bitcoin
you
however
prefer.
you want.
You can assign value in the way that you prefer.
Assign value in the way that you prefer. So taking that centralized control of that token is the most important thing, is what you're saying.
No, if you have a video game that uses tokenized things to represent game pieces, you want to assign the game piece value and format the way that you want to do it, rather than the limited ways that perhaps Bitcoin ordinals does it.
How would Bitcoin limit you from issuing tokens?
You mean how could? Okay, how would Bitcoin doesn't have to limit you if you're creative enough. Now, if you only need just a number for your token, you're fine. You can have the rest of the information on your own local database. But if you want to store a lot of specific data on the blockchain, Bitcoin ordinals might not store enough information for you. That's it. It's you want a specific implementation. If you don't find it, you make your own.
We're not talking about storing information. We're talking about taking it as a payment coin.
I'm trying to answer your question.
Why couldn't any project starting today take Bitcoin as their payment instead of creating their own token?
Again, I told you it might just be that they want something more than payment. They want to wrap it into their ecosystem.
How? How would Bitcoin not make that happen?
Ethereum does it really good because you can program your payment system. That's awesome. I love that feature. That's something that Bitcoin doesn't have currently. Why use?
Are you sure? Be careful. Be careful. Yeah. Are you sure you can't program it to take it the way you want it?
Does Bitcoin have smart contracts? Really?
It does.
When did it start getting them?
6 or 7 months ago.
Okay, so the Ethereum ecosystem has built up around smart contracts that have been around for a whole lot longer. In fact, I would say that they're a first mover. So why move off of Ethereum to go onto Bitcoin if Bitcoin just started getting smart contracts?
No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about tokens that launch today.
Ethereum is a first mover. They have more projects on them using that. So why not stick with Ethereum? The question is, why do they need to move off of Ethereum?
Why not use ETH? Why their own token? Let's use ETH.
The same thing goes. If you prefer the features that Bitcoin smart contracts would give you, I'm not familiar with that. If you prefer those features, then use them. Bitcoin does tend to be a bit slow. Personally, I would prefer smart contracts on a faster blockchain like XRP. I think they just got smart contracts as well.
Okay. So you've avoided the question. Go back. Why not Ethereum? Ethereum's been around forever. Why not just use ETH?
I'm just going to keep repeating myself. If you prefer the features of another coin, then you're going to use that one.
Okay.
It depends on what features are implemented. Not all these chains have the same features implemented on them. Now, when you're just saying for a payment token, you got to ask yourself, why not just use US dollars? Okay. So you can use any token for a payment token if you really want to, but one of them is going to have features that you like. It's either going to go faster, it's going to do some sort of streaming, it's going to store more data, whatever. People, in my opinion, aren't going to want to use just a payment token.
So why not use ETH for the platform?
Because maybe they want to use the brand new Bitcoin smart contracts that you tell me that are out there. Because maybe it has new features. Maybe they'll think it will be more better accepted by people.
If they're already using an ETH-based token, switching to plain ETH would be easy.
Yeah, could be. So you're asking these questions like I somehow need to prove it to you.
No, I'm asking the question. My ultimate question is, why do all of these new projects have to launch their own token when they have plenty available, whether it's ETH
because they each have
or
different
AVAX?
features.
But you can program ETH to do whatever you want.
Not whatever you want. You can program ETH to do some things, and you can program, as you say, if Bitcoin has smart contracts, you can program Bitcoin to do other things. I have a feeling that they don't have feature parity. That's going to be our word for today. Feature parity. We'll see if I can spell it right. Can anyone
PARODY?
Can anyone explain what feature parity means? I'll wait. No, I'll tell you. Feature parity is when you have multiple things with the same features. If your coin has the same exact feature as Ethereum, people will probably go with Ethereum because Ethereum is more popular. If Bitcoin and Ethereum have the same features, people will want to go with what's more popular. I have a feeling, though, that Ethereum is going to try to get out ahead of Bitcoin, or Bitcoin's going to have to want to get ahead of Ethereum, and they will always be, kind of like different car companies. One car company has maps in a screen that's this big. Another car company has a map in a screen that's smaller. The cars don't have complete feature parity. They're always trying to outdo each other. That's nice. I think that's great. That keeps everybody on their toes, and people keep inventing and evolving.
Okay.
So you go there because of the features. I would certainly hope, frankly, that 30 years from now, that whatever, if a crypto is adopted worldwide, that we're not still using Bitcoin itself. I would hope that we're using a fork that's faster or a better coin. And I think Satoshi wanted that very same thing. I don't think he expected Bitcoin to be around this long.
That's why there's Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. You can buy those.
Good, but do they have smart contracts like Bitcoin?
I don't know. I can't answer that one.
Maybe the interesting thing about Bitcoin SV is it was supposed to be the original vision of Satoshi, which means it probably doesn't have smart contracts or Bitcoin ordinals. And they're just going to say, well, you'll just use it for a payment token. Well, fuck, my project's not going to be able to use them then, so I can't use Bitcoin SV. I need more features.
Even ETH at the base layer, you can use ETH pretty much interchangeably with any token. And that's why they have places you can go to swap them, because they're pretty much the same. What the fuck are you doing on there?
No, I'm not doing anything.
Oh, is that Zorro?
Well, yeah, that's what Zorro does.
You look like that guy from
He's
Star
like
Trek.
Marx.
No, he looks like that Star Trek guy.
Star Trek.
What's his name? Yeah, the Star Trek guy that took over Spock's role in the New Generation.
So Shanrad here says he thinks
Worf. That's it. That looks
Shanrad
like Worf.
says he thinks that I'm strengthening Titan's position. My position seems to be people are making their own coins because it will be better. If their main focus is their project, they will not be able. Oh, if I made a project personally, I don't have the time nor the ability to understand how to make my own blockchain. But I'll tell you, if I made $2 billion on my project, like Gala Games did, I would very much be wanting to make my own blockchain. So, and I'll want very specific features.
But why do you need that? You can choose, Faz, from a billion blockchains that are out there that have all the features you could possibly want.
Because I can't control those blockchains, I can control my own.
You can control your own channel within that blockchain.
Well, I don't want to control a channel within a blockchain. If I have $2 billion, I'm going to make my own goddamn blockchain, and I can make it run exactly the way I think it should. There's a lot of different algos out there, and mine is better than yours. So I'm not going to run on your chain. Not only that, I'm beholden to you. And plus, apparently you, when you made your coin for your blockchain, you give your team right off the bat 20% of your coins. What the fuck? I want to do that with mine too. That's how I'm going to raise money. That's what people do. That's how they make their business.
But you can do it on any blockchain.
You don't have to.
It's existing.
No, you don't need to.
You don't need to. So just because
I will do it if I need
you
to.
should.
If I can, I will probably want to. Yeah. Now,
I'm not sure that's best.
If Gala Chain, if the head of Gala Chain promises me enough money and influence, I might keep my stuff on his chain, but I'm always going to be beholden to him. In fact, if Benefactor gets caught with many prostitutes and buying more jets and stuff like that, then it's going to make my project look bad.
Are you saying he got caught with prostitutes?
Oh my God.
I said if. I didn't say he did.
I'm gonna make a short of that and send it over to him. I don't talk to that guy, but I'll send him that one.
You do that.
Faz says you hire hookers.
I don't know, does he?
I will be happy to send that shirt to him.
Diddler list. He's on P. Diddy's list.
So this is how Titan gives up here. Again, if you have your own planned ecosystem, if you have an algorithm that you like, if you have a way that you want to bring people in and make your own economy, you may wish to make your own node ecosystem.
Are you ready? Are you ready to be destroyed? Because I'm about to destroy you with your last statement.
You will definitely crow about whatever you think that you're destroying me about. Go for it.
Because Gala Chain admits and markets that you can do whatever you want within their chain. So does Cosmos. So does AVAX. So you don't need another blockchain.
Okay, so if you don't need another blockchain, yet right now Gala Chain has to approve your project, I don't feel like I can do anything I want.
All right. So you're saying Gala Chain is not the preferred choice of those who want to do what they want to do, right?
No. For me, it would be Faz Chain. But until I have enough money to make Faz Chain, it may be Gala Chain, it might be Polkadot, it might be Ethereum. Ethereum's too slow though, and costs way too much.
So this whole last 20 minutes has brought us back to point one, which is it's not necessary, but if you want to do it because you can, you should. That's what you're saying.
It's like having a truck versus a car. Is a pickup truck necessary? Really? No, it's not. You can just use a car to get around. But
it's a choice.
It's a choice. But people with pickup trucks, for some reason, seem to find use for that pickup truck, even though I've owned both, a pickup truck and a car, and I've done all the same things in the pickup truck that I've done with my car. So why should I pick the pickup truck? Because it has features my car doesn't have. That's it.
But you can find a chain that's there. This is a good point right here.
I do.
There we go.
Should I show the t-shirts again?
Do the Faz special.
What's the Faz special?
Where you click on and off super quick for the Christmas shirt. Because I fucking love that thing. I'm not even joking. I am literally going to buy like 30 of those.
I don't think that Mr. Zorro is going to allow me to do that because he said earlier in this cast that I could not. And I don't. I
am seriously going to buy like 30 of those.
Just shake your head.
That
no,
was
Mr.
epic.
See, he won't let me. He won't let me do it.
That
That's a no.
that is good stuff.
No, that you got to
Um,
get. If you buy Halloween stuff, then maybe I could do it with the Christmas stuff. But I don't see
look,
anybody dying for Halloween stuff right now.
I'm gonna reveal a secret.
Oh my God.
Okay. And this is something we're very proud of. But Faz finally got back into the Patreon account. We had some horrible email issues that was partially my fault because I was with a terrible internet service provider that had our emails all jacked up, and it took us literally months to unfuck the email.
That looks pretty rare.
And so we are not bullshitters here at FazRadio. We're collecting a war chest.
No bullshit.
Yes, we want to make money, but we're not making it so that we can buy Lambos or anything else. We want to go to conferences. We want to run FazRadio from these conferences. We want to build a war chest so that we can improve FazRadio. 100%. Every dime that Faz collects is going into a public pool so that we can improve FazRadio. And that is a very, 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 very cool thing.
I like how
so
I like how you're telegraphing my business process, even though we haven't talked completely about that. So
listen.
That's not completely true.
I want. You might be enriching yourself, but you're not telling us about it. I think Zorro and I need to have a conference about that later.
I see you being very specious here, right here, even with that last response. I didn't say I was enriching myself either.
Is that we're putting these things out there to improve FazRadio. We're not here to improve ourselves. We're here to improve FazRadio. So please, if you have a couple of bucks that you can buy one of these kick-ass like Halloween shirts or a FazRadio hoodie, please do it. We want to be able to get out there into the community and build something epic for FazRadio.
I agree with that.
Agree.
That must be Shanrat's truck that he or is that your grill? Yes, we're looking to sell shirts so that we can make more cool stuff and get FazRadio to the next level.
So that Faz can have an actual background like Zorro and I do. That's like number one priority.
Well, that's going to be in a little bit. Give me a month or two. That'll be solved. And plus,
yeah,
I just like,
look at that in the yellow bug car.
I just like making the shirts, so there's that too.
The Faz Bumblebee.
And
$80.
You know
how much it actually costs to make these damn shirts?
If you take the effort you put into it, Faz busts his ass to make these designs, and he'll throw like 50 graphics into our private chat, and he'll be like, "Which one do you like out of 50? I don't fucking know. I like this one, and this one." He gets off on this stuff. That is the face he makes when he posts all them designs too. Look he's doing it right now. He was doing it just a second ago. That's the face he makes.
Just do it one more time.
So anyway, we do have an idea of that we might want to go to some conferences, and if we did, we don't want to be there empty-handed. We want to have swag, and so but we need money to go to these conferences, and no, none of us are rich.
I think Faz is like a bazillionaire with his 85 bazillion Gala.
I'd be showing off more than the T-shirt if I was a bazillionaire.
But me and Zorro, we're poor as dirt over here. We can barely get, it cost me $20 to get my backdrop.
It's kind of funny how much money you've spent on that studio of yours. Thousands of dollars on your studio. I haven't spent a damn cent, and he's the one saying I'm the rich one.
I got the nice light. I want FazRadio to be a higher quality cast. So I invest in my future. Yes, I get the fancy lights. I get the big light here. I get the nice camera coming in.
You know what I found in the garage?
And I got head shine.
You'll like this.
God, I
found
hate
this
being
in the
bald.
garage the other day. Does this
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
Shanrat,
wants
we're
to
all
buy the
on a
holiday bundle. It'll cost more than $80 for a holiday bundle, unless we print in bulk. And I don't want to print in bulk until we have people banging down our doors. I get a whole lot cheaper if I buy like 1,000 of these shirts. Yeah.
Well, I think
Shanrat, we're all on a fixed income, man. We're broadcasting with the best we can muster together.
We think. Go ahead. Sorry, Titan.
No, seriously. Yeah. Think tank, you're right. But I don't want to take from my kids. I would love to, because man, I'm looking at his wallet and that's a juicy wallet. There is no doubt. But that kid, when he's 30 years old and I'm dead and gone, yeah, he's going to be
30,
all right.
How old is he right now?
The middle, the one that's good with that, he's 14.
So, wow, you only got about 16 years left? Oh my God.
Yeah, probably. I abused myself. I got my wine glass here. I got my vape over here. I ain't going to make it till 80, 90 years old. Are you kidding me?
Oh my God. I plan to live till I'm 104. So I guess FazRadio will be mostly known for
my God.
comes after you.
You might live that long, but your dementia is going to take over before that.
What?
What did I say?
Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
See? So are you starting to slow down, or are you starting to speed up with the drinking there?
I only drink on Friday nights now.
Which is tonight. That explains
tonight.
Lot. That explains a lot with the conspiracy theories and the getting angry at me.
And when he's live.
And when he's live.
Yeah, you gotta. So I was bad, dude. I was like really bad. I was drinking 7 days a week for most of my 30s. 7 days a week. Me and Jerry, my buddy from California, he was our landlord, and we would go get a 24-pack every single day, and it was empty every day. And we'd play ping pong in the backyard and get looped as fuck every day. And so when I got into my 40s, I started like deteriorating. I thought I was impervious to everything. I had never had a cavity. I had never had a medical problem. I had never had anything ever.
I've never had a cavity.
And so I thought I was like a demigod over here. And all of a sudden, when I hit 45, everything went down the shitter really quickly. And
literally, he has a bidet.
Yeah. The bidet is the most incredible invention of human history, let me tell you. But I had a lot of health problems between 45 and today. But I've overcome that as long as I keep my weight at a reasonable thing, because I got really fat at one point. I was like a huge motherfucker. Oh my God, I was so big. I was like 225 pounds. It was like ridiculous.
More like wide. You're pretty short, actually.
Yeah, I am. And so that was really bad. And I solved that problem. And I went through some cancer. I came out the other side okay. And I'm making it through day by day. And here we are today. But I don't think I'm going to live till 90. I don't think. If I do, fantastic. I'll still be doing FazRadio long after these Zorro and Faz are in the nursing home, like, you know, sipping on their margaritas that they say are margaritas, but it's really apple juice with ice in it. So I'll still be broadcasting here. If that's the case, great. And if not, you'll have a history of FazRadio that we're going to put on the blockchain that you'll be able to go back to and reference and enjoy long after I'm out of here.
Well, I guess you can't use Bitcoin ordinals for that.
I could, but I don't want to spend my Bitcoin on getting ordinals.
Take a lot.
Shanrat, dude, I can totally relate to that 100%. I abused the hell out of myself because I thought I was impervious to everything. And I still, to this day, and for those of you who don't know and have made it this long into a 2-hour and 49-minute podcast, I'm 54, going on 55.
That's old.
And I still have 0 cavities. I'm still pretty red. I just got a little bit of gray. I just got a little bit of gray in there. I'm doing all right. I'm a volleyball coach for my daughter's team, and I still got out there and play volleyball with them. I still can throw a baseball well over 60 miles an hour. I'm in pretty good shape, but I learned my lesson when I had my health handed to me in my late 40s. Stay active, stay intense, get into it, do things like we do here on FazRadio that give you passion for living. I love doing this show every Friday night, and Faz and I fight like idiots sometimes on this show. I love him like a brother, and I'll still fight with him. But I'll tell you what, I look forward to every Friday night more than anything else. This is awesome for me. So please take everything that you have and do what you want to do. That's what we're doing here at FazRadio. We're trying to make our dreams come alive. I want to go to conferences. I want to be a journalist. I want to take and interview these people who can make an impact on the world. That's what I want to do. That's why I'm here, and that's why we're doing this.
I can't top that. So on that note,